to the NBC Sports Network. The NBC Sports Network welcomes you to the following presentation of the Tour de France.
The Manx Missile is rewriting the record books. In Stage 2, Mark Cavendish rocketed to his 21st career Tour de France triumph. Today, 22-year-old Peter Sagan will ride in just his third career road stage of the Tour, but he's already eyeing his second victory. Stage 2 brought the sprinters into Tournai at high speed and featured a head-to-head face-off at the finish, as the Manx Missile narrowly outrode a top rival, reaffirming his sprint supremacy.
Is the Missile going to hit his target for the 21st time? Yes, he does. Incredible.
Today, the top contenders must remain alert during a stage with ample risk over an uneven stretch of road, while the man wearing green is eagerly targeting another early triumph. Stage 3 of the Tour de France is next. On Saturday, we welcomed you to the Tour de France. Today is Tuesday, and we welcome you to the country of France. On the north coast, Boulogne-sur-Mer is the largest fishing port in the country, and we wait 122 grueling miles to see which man can reel in victory on stage number 3. Hey everyone, I'm Liam McHugh. Welcome to Tour de France Live, presented by Cadillac. 256 miles down, 1,917 to go, and after 3 days in Belgium, today the Tour finally touches down in France. Stage 3, it's a bit of a bumpy up and down ride, which finishes here along the walls of the castle at Boulogne-sur-Mer. And with that, I welcome in Bob Roll. Bob, yesterday was certainly a day for speed. That's really not the case today. Yesterday, we saw speed in perhaps its purest form. The excuses for Mark Cavendish, we talked about. I mean, they were really all there for this guy. He doesn't have his teammates from last year. People had said he'd lost weight, so perhaps Mark Cavendish had lost power. So when he goes out and wins a stage the way he did yesterday, what does he prove?
Well, great athletes define themselves by the monuments of their sport. And for sprinters, it's the Tour de France, the flat stages set up for the sprinters to be successful. The current generation is dominated by one man, Mark Cavendish, the best of the current generation. There's no doubt about that. Maybe the greatest of all time.
We'll talk about that generation in just a bit. Let's take a closer look now at yesterday. Breakdown, Cavs go it alone ride to victory.
This is about 800 yards from the finish line. Mark Cavendish, a long ways back from the front. Doesn't have his teammates doing the lead out that he's been accustomed to throughout his sprint career at the Tour de France. And about 200 yards later, there's Mark Cavendish, third wheel. He weaves himself through traffic, finds the perfect lead out. Andre Greipel, probably his top rival in the sprint, starts his sprint to the line. This is only a couple of hundred yards to go. Greipel had a perfect lead out. It didn't matter. Mark Cavendish was able to come around him anyways. An incredible burst of speed to the line from Cavendish to win the stage.
So Cavendish wins the stage. As for your Michelob Ultra overall standings, Fabian Cancellara hangs on to the yellow jersey. Bradley Wiggins, considered the overall favorite, still remains 7 seconds back. And how about the American TJ Van Garderen hanging in there at number 4?
Number 8, Cadel Evans. That's a good position in the top 10 in the overall standings, but what's worrying, he's still 10 seconds behind Bradley Wiggins.
Let's bring it back to Cavendish. There are so many different kinds of dominance throughout sports. We're talking about this. Remember boxer Roy Jones Jr.? This is a guy who dominated for the better part of a decade, just demolishing people. But a lot of people said the biggest criticism was perhaps that his weight class was weak. For Cavendish, it seems like he can't lose out there. And his competition is pretty stacked at this point. You consider this a golden age of sprinting.
Oh, absolutely. We're looking at one of the best eras in the history of the sport of cycling for sprinters. Andre Greipel, Matt Goss, Peter Sagan, Mark Renshaw, Alessandro Petacchi. Cavendish finds a way to beat those guys consistently. Eventually, somebody will beat Cavendish, but it's a one-off. It's not consistently, and that's what makes Cavendish so special, is that he finds a way to win no matter what the circumstances are.
Cavendish won the green jersey last year, the sprinter's jersey. As for the yellow jersey, the overall contenders for that, Bradley Wiggins is in that conversation. Certainly Cadel Evans, he's the defending champion. A lot of people thought that yesterday was kind of a day off for these guys, but we saw them out there working, grinding. We thought, these guys, they just want to stay safe. But to stay safe, how hard do you have to work?
Well, the harder you work, the better luck you have. And in the Tour de France, the competition for the front of the peloton is so intense, you have to do an incredible turn of work to stay there. For Cadel Evans, what that means is following his teammates, he finds himself second wheel in the peloton within 3 miles to go to the finish. Generally speaking, that's when the sprinters teams have taken over. And there's Bradley Wiggins himself right at the front of the field. That's the hard work that's required to stay out of trouble in the Tour de France.
And now we see both of them riding right up top of the peloton.
There's Cadel Evans right on the wheel of Bradley Wiggins, and they're following the sprint trains here at this point, very close to the finish line, but it's absolutely essential. If you want to win the Tour de France, you have to work hard every single day. There's no rest days until the rest day.
Perhaps they learned something from last year. We saw Alberto Contador, considered one of the favorites, in bad position last year, not up near the front of the peloton. He was involved in a wreck. Belgium is behind us. Today, our first day in France. The riders' first day on French roads. Phil Liggett and Paul Sherwin will join us next for picks and predictions in what is a rather unpredictable stage. The 2012 Tour de France Live on the NBC Sports Network is presented by Cadillac, the new standard of the world.
Cavendish has picked up the wheel of Greipel. Now can he launch himself from it as they start going shoulder to shoulder? This is it now as they go for the line, and still lost on his wheel comes Cavendish. Cavendish, can he get round his old teammate and win? Is the missile going to hit his target for the 21st time? And yes, he does. Incredible.
His 21st career stage victory at the Tour de France. Today, however, is not a day for Mark Cavendish, not a day for the pure sprinters. To show you what we mean by that, let's have a look at the Geico stage map. Bob Roll, the guided tour.
197 total kilometers. That's just about 120 miles. We're still heading west towards the coast in the far north of the country. This is the start town. Pay close attention. After 120 kilometers of the sprint point, that's been a very heated competition. The race route has gone across the region looking for every climb they could find. In the last 20 miles of the bike race, that's going to be very challenging for not just the sprinters, but the whole peloton.
That's course, and here are the stage facts for stage number 3. As Bob just showed you, 6 climbs in this one. That intermediate sprint point for this one with 78 kilometers to go. The tour's 4th visit to this area. So not a mountain stage until stage 7, so this would be more of a pure hilly stage, you'd have to say. So what do you expect?
It's a more versatile rider that can come to the fore on a stage like today. A guy like Peter Sagan, it's a perfect stage for him. Good climber, an incredible burst of speed at the end of these competitive stages. Also, perhaps a rider like Sylvain Chavanel, very versatile French rider. Great speed, incredible power, and endurance. This is an interesting stage in that if you're an overall contender, you have to pay close attention. If you're leading the race, you have to do a lot of work to keep yourself there. And for the GC contenders, a lot of attention. But for the stage hunters, it plays out perfectly for their talents.
We've given you the lay of the land. As for who will roll through it the quickest, it is time. Cadillac performance predictions. Our fearless forecasters, the standings for them. We have a tie up top. Phil Liggett and Paul Sherwin both have 8 points. Bob Roll in good position, just 1 point back, 8, 7. And in today's edition, Phil Liggett is up first. But, of course, him and Paul have to somehow split the yellow jersey today.
It's not easy, but here we go.
No, out of respect, I'll leave it with you.
No?
Thank you very much.
All right, Phil, wire-to-wire last year. Technically still could go wire-to-wire since you're splitting the yellow jersey today. Who do you like?
Well, it is a difficult finish, as Bob has told us. Those last 20 miles full of undulations, not just the undulations, tricky descents, narrow roads, hint of rain. But I still think the peloton will come to the base of the last climb more or less together. And if they do, well, I think we'll have to stay with Peter Sagan. I think he's the man to win today. He's showing us on the hills he's the best.
Yeah, he's showing us that. I think I'd like to pick next, but unfortunately, I think it's Bob's turn today to go second, so I'm going to pick last.
It is. We're going to stick with the same rotation. Paul will pick last. You're up now. Who do you like?
Edvald Boasson-Hagen, winner of 2 stages last year, was very close on stage number 1. He was able to follow the acceleration of Fabian Cancellara. Couldn't quite match Peter Sagan's dash to the line, but this is not such a difficult hill, and Boasson-Hagen a little bit more speed perhaps in his legs than Sagan. He won a field sprint last year. Watch for the other man from Sky, their other sprinter besides Cavendish, to win today's stage.
Let's go back to the booth, back by the finish of today's stage. Paul, you have the last pick. Who do you like?
I think our Cadillac predictions is going to be a little bit like the Tour de France this year. Very unpredictable. I don't think it's ever been quite so close, and we've all managed to pick well on the first few stages. I'm going to go with Philippe Gilbert, as I did a couple of days ago, because I think Philippe Gilbert will try and stay as close as he can to Cadel Evans. He'll have to be there to protect him. So when it comes down to the end, if he can smell any chance of a victory, he's got the ability to come out and get the win. So I'll go with Philippe Gilbert.
All right. Phil, Paul, thanks for the picks. Good luck to both of you. Enjoy the stage. One man no one picked is the man wearing yellow today. That's Fabian Cancellara. Tough and very tenacious in stage 1, which was not the easiest of stages. Where do you think he finishes up in a stage like today?
Well, right when I said Edvald Boasson-Hagen, in the back of my mind, I thought, well, maybe Fabian Cancellara seemed to be the strongest guy on stage number 1. He was desperate for that stage win and barely came up short. I think he'll be a good pick also for today. He wants a stroke of brilliance.
As we take a sneak peek at live racing, you see the man in the yellow jersey and with an entourage. He's rolling deep. That's how you roll when you roll with the yellow jersey, Bob.
His teammates surrounding him, keeping him out of trouble. He's been helped in yesterday, especially by the sprinters team. They might have to do a little bit more work to keep Cancellara in position today.
Well, we go from the man in the yellow jersey to the man leading this stage right here. Do we spot the polka dot jersey there?
3 stages on the open road, 1 man in all 3 of them, Michael Morkov. He's a Saxo Bank rider in the polka dot jersey, and a lot of points up for offer in that competition today.
So a 5-man breakaway group, 4:17 is the gap, and the king of the mountain, Merkel, is out there in that group. It's a sprinter stage. Green jersey points are still up for grab. We will break it down on Tour de France Live when we roll on. Standard of the world. Hey everyone, welcome back to Tour de France Live, joined now by Scott Moniger. Let's talk about the guys competing for the GC, the yellow jersey. Cadel Evans, the defending champ, still trails Bradley Wiggins by 10 seconds. When you look at a stage like today, is this a stage where he could make up some of that time?
Absolutely. If you look historically, you know, Cadel has taken his shots on stages like this. And what's interesting to note is when you look at the first stage, stage 1 was listed as a flat stage. This is actually listed as a medium mountain stage. Stage 1, we saw only 50 riders were in the front group on the same time. So I think you're going to see a lot of shakeup in the overall today. I think it's a great place for somebody like Ryder Hesjedal to take a shot, as well as Cadel. I'd probably put some money on Nibali as well. You know, it's a really good finish for him in conjunction with Sagan. I think those two could really do some damage. There's 5 KOMs in the last 20 miles of this guy, so it's going to be a serious day out there.
Yeah, with the way this finishes, would you expect Cadel to make a move?
I think Cadel, if he has good legs, he'll launch a little bit of an attack. Bradley Wiggins has been very attentive at the front of the peloton, though. So when you're Cadel Evans, you'll always see around if it's a good moment. If he thinks the last climb is a good moment and the gaps are starting to open up, he is very powerful, maybe a bit more punch than Bradley Wiggins in a sprint. So if he has a chance, I wouldn't be surprised if he takes it.
Cadel Evans, of course, captured the yellow jersey last year. As for the green jersey, it is the sprinter's jersey, and here are the green jersey standings as we head into stage 3. Peter Sagan, 22-year-old, leads Mark Cavendish in very good position with 63 points, and then you see the man in yellow, Fabian Cancellara. So it's early, just stage 3 today, but when it all is said and done, you Peter Sagan there, you see Mark Cavendish, who knows how seriously he's taking this green jersey pursuit. Who do you think gets the green jersey when it's all over?
I think, honestly, winning the green jersey is probably going to be more difficult this year than winning the yellow jersey. This is going to be a battle that's fought all the way. I mean, every point is going to really count. I mean, we can see that from the midways. These guys are scooping up third-place points, fifth-place points, kind of taking whatever they can get. And, you know, unfortunately for the sprinters, this guy goes down to the last sprint of the day on the final stage in Paris. So it's going to be a hard-fought battle. It's a coin toss between the pure speed of Mark Cavendish and the power and the enthusiasm that Peter Sagan brings to his game.
All right, toss a coin. Who do you got?
I'm going to go Sagan.
All right.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think Matt Goss has come here to the Tour de France with one objective, to win the green jersey. His team, big budget team, brand new. They also would like something to take away from this Tour de France. They don't have an overall contender. Watch for Matt Goss to go for those points every chance he has. And he's identified his chief rival. And he's trying to do everything he can to get just ahead of Sagan each sprint that they have, whether it's a finish line or the intermediate sprints. I think Orica has a plan. Matt Goss is going to try to execute that, and it's all about the green jersey.
Matt Goss with Orica Green Edge. They do have a plan. We're actually seeing it at the intermediate sprints in this one. He's been very strong so far in 2 intermediate sprints. Let's take a look back at yesterday's.
Matt Goss is a fast sprinter, but it always helps to have allies, 2 teammates there doing the lead out. This is a long ways from the finish line of the stage, but Matt Goss queued up there. Mark Renshaw in orange on his wheel. Once Gossy goes for the line, Cavendish comes into the frame. Peter Sagan maybe saving himself a little bit for the finish line. Cavendish able to get through on the fence, but Matt Goss, you can't say it's easy, but he did get maximum points there. There were 3 men up the road, but each one of the intermediate sprints are going to be hotly contested. That's why the Tour de France put the points and the competition in their intermediate sprint a lot more intense to make the green jersey really an incredible competition, and it's going to be fantastic throughout the Tour de France this year.
Orica seems like it's a team that's determined. When you have a team that is solely focused on helping one rider get that green jersey, how much of a help is it?
Well, you notice from that footage right there that Matt Goss was surrounded by some teammates, and one of the advantages of that, whether he wins or gets third, he's got teammates behind him that are scooping up those points. So that makes it where Sagan is going to be 2 or 3 places behind, or Cavendish, or whoever the other point contenders kind of are going to be. So you can kind of play a little bit of, kind of do some calculations there and play the numbers a little bit by having teammates up there with you, not only leading you out, but also scooping up points behind you.
Stage number 3, more points at stake for the green jersey. Matt Goss looking to go after some of them, and earlier he spoke to Craig Hummer.
When you come up a little short like you did in stage number 2, what does that teach you about yourself and also about your competition?
Nothing I don't already know about the competition. They're 2 of the fastest sprinters in the world, that's for sure. And, for me, maybe I should have went a little bit earlier. I felt good and I sprinted strong all the way to the line. And I think if I had have jumped 50 metres earlier, I could have got up alongside those guys and then, been right in the running. But as it was, when they jumped, it put me on the back foot. So, we got to play each stage differently. No 2 stages pan out the same, but like always, have confidence in my guys, and they always deliver me to where I have to be.
Your director, Matt White, as well as you, have said this is a stage that suits your characteristics very well. Aside from the obvious in your train, getting you in that right position towards the finish, what are the keys going to be for you in the final few meters?
Well, today's going to be, it's almost on my limit. It's going to be really, really tough for me to get there. We're going to have to be having a really good day, and hopefully it pans out that way. But if I can get to the final climb, the final climb's not going to be so much of a problem. We're going to come in really fast. We're going to be 2/3 of the way up before we're really on the pedals, and then it's only 400 or 500 metres to go. But, the problem is that we've got 5 categorised climbs, and 3 of those come in the last 15K. So it's really going to be a test of getting there, and if I can get there, then hopefully we can do something in the final.
All right, good luck today.
Thanks, man.
So he says it's going to be a test. It's certainly not going to be easy. Really, none of the stages are. But this is a guy who's an extremely versatile sprinter. Of course, nobody picked him to win this stage in our Cadillac Performance predictions. Maybe more of a pure sprinter. Is he capable of upsetting the field?
I think if you look at the pure speed sprinters of this race, Goss is certainly the top of that list. But I go back to stage 1 again in Serang, where they were setting him up, leading up to the final climb, and he just didn't have the gas at the very end. So I do think this stage today is going to come down to one of the GC favorites or one of the other guys chasing the green jersey, like Sagan.
What has to happen for him to be in position to upset the field?
I think it's a good for Matt Goss to have a stage like this. If we look at Milano-San Remo from a couple of years ago, very similar profile. That's a long classic. He was able to win that. That finishes on a flat road, but Matt Goss did a great job to stay in the front with some of the best climbers in the business. When Matt Goss is playing some gamesmanship and selling himself a little bit short, using the subterfuge, when he wins a stage, you can tell he's lying. So I think Goss has a great chance to win today's stage.
What is it? When a rider's moving his lips, he may be...
Yeah.
Yeah, perhaps long. Taking a live look at the race. Our live coverage is coming up in just a bit, but let's talk a little bit about stage 3. We knew we'd see a breakaway in this one. Breakaway, greater chance of hanging on?
Most certainly, yeah. It's an unpredictable stage because of the climbs at the finish and the weather and the crosswinds that blow in the northwest of France also that buffet the peloton at times. One thing for certain is that Radio Shack is going to do everything they can do to keep Fabian Cancellara in that yellow jersey. Cancellara is certainly capable of defending that once we get to the last climb, but throughout the stage, it'll be their job to keep the breakaway in check. It's not impossible that the breakaway does not stay away, depending on what happens in the field, though.
Team Radio Shack out in front of the peloton. Scott, give me a point during this stage that you're looking forward to for things to really start to take shape.
You know, that series of KOMs starting, like I said, about 20-25 miles to go, I think that's really when, you know, the GC riders are going to start showing their face and really come to the front. And, you know, this is a tougher terrain to control if you're Radio Shack. They'll get a little bit of help, I think, from Liquid Gas. They're going to get less help from a team like Lotto and some of the other teams that have pure sprinters because, you know, the topography just doesn't lend itself to the pure sprinters today. But I do think they'll find some allies. And I see this thing being mostly together probably in the last kilometer or two.
We see the leaders right here, and we see the king of the mountains, Michael Murku, in the polka dot jersey. To keep up with the Tour de France, you'll need the most advanced digital experience of its kind. Go to NBCSports.com/TDF Live and get Tour de France Live. For a limited time, get Tour de France Live for just $29.99. Phil Liggett and Paul Sherwin have the live call of stage number 3 of the 2012 Tour de France coming at you in just a moment.
This is the biggest fishing port in France. It is on the English Channel as well. The tunnel links it with the United Kingdom. 122 miles online to Boulogne-sur-Mer today as the riders now head to this finishing line. Looks flat enough here, doesn't it? Well, I can tell you it climbs all the way to the finish line today. As we look out across the canals of the north of France here, once again, the riders coming basically in a westerly direction to arrive in Boulogne. Well, as we look out across the fields here today, Paul, the weather is overcast and there's every chance the wind will blow the rain in during the race.
Well, it very often does come in off the English Channel, very changeable in this part of the world. An interesting profile when we get down towards the end, Phil, because this is what we've done so far after 50 miles of racing, pretty much flat. But we're going into an area known as Le Boulonnais, which is the area around Boulogne in the area where we're finishing here. But the organisation have found a very tricky run in towards the finish with 3 climbs in the last 10 miles, and I have to say 4 climbs in the last 20 miles. It's going to be very difficult, I think, for anybody to control the front end of the main field on the run into Boulogne-sur-Mer.
So I think we can expect to see the riders with ambitions riding near the front, staying safe again. As we're looking at the back of the peloton, it's been a pretty routine day so far. Pace has been good, 27.5 miles an hour covered in the opening mile. They've still got a fair way to go, of course, but the pace has been on, and there is a breakaway up front with 5 riders in the lead. I just saw Johnny Hoogland sitting at the back of the bunch. Well, he doesn't need reminding about this, does he? That's him going straight into the barbed wire fence. I think that's probably one of the worst accidents I've seen in the Tour.
Well, one of the most dramatic for sure. But the amazing thing is the 2 guys who went down, he had about 120 stitches in his legs. He finished the stage and went on to finish the Tour de France, which I think is absolutely remarkable.
And he had to go up on the podium when he got to the finish and pull on the leader's jersey in the King of the Mountains. He was in tears with pain. And in fact, he's in the Tour. Of course, we've just seen him this year, but he's also still in some pain from the healing scars, which are all over the backs of his legs and his back.
Yeah, well, the Tour de France, no stranger to Boulogne-sur-Mer. It's the 4th visit here this year, Phil, and first came in 1949. But in the recent times, in 1994, it was won by the sprinter Jean-Paul van Poppel. And last time we came here, it was won by the great sprinter Eric Zabel from Germany. So these are the 5 men leading group, and they got away after 5 kilometres. Attack started immediately. The race came out of the gun, and finally at 5 kilometres, these 5 men, Andrei Grivko, Michael Mercus, Sebastian Minard, Ruben Perez of Euskaltel-Euskadi, and Giovanni Bernardo established their advantage. After 15 kilometres, it reached its maximum at 5 minutes and 40 seconds, but then all of a sudden, Radio Shack Nissan came to the front and said, enough is enough.
Well, these are the 5 leaders at the moment, racing on extremely good wide roads here as they make their way steadily into the hills around Boulogne. Now, we saw the crash just then last year to Johnny Hoogerland, but let's now go to Craig Hummer, because he met somebody who was hit yesterday in the race by a car, and here he is at the start this morning talking to him.
Here at the start line of stage 3, I was just able to visit with Astana's Yanni Brajkovic. It was his roommate, Borad Bozic, that was hit yesterday after stopping to take a nature break. He'd been riding for about 20 to 30 seconds when he was squarely hit from behind and sent to the ground. Yanni says his roommate is going to be okay, a little shaken up, but shades of stage 9 from last year's tour when Johnny Hoogerland and Juan Antonio Flecha went onto the sidelines.
Well, thanks, Craig. Yes, I saw 1 or 2 of the riders tweeting today saying this is a note to all the spectators. Please don't stand in the road taking photographs of us, because you get hurt and we get hurt. And I think that's about the best advice we can say. Well, this is the peloton. There is the winner of yesterday's stage in that white jersey, just peeping in and out behind his Sky teammates. Mark Cavendish delivered one of the finest sprints of his life yesterday. Why? Because Paulie had to do it without his team.
We had to learn a different way of sprinting, but the fact is, don't ever forget, Mark Cavendish has been a world champion on the track. He knows how to sprint without a lead-out train, and he used all of that knowledge yesterday to weave his way through the pack and go from wheel to wheel until he finally got the wheel that he wanted, and that was the wheel of Andrei Greipel. He came out of that slipstream like a Formula 1 racing car.
Well, under the control of Fabian Cancellara's Radio Shack team, all of those riders on the front, 7 of them setting the pace, and they've been doing a good job of it, which indicates to me that Cancellara wants to keep his yellow jersey. But I'm wondering, Paul, as they make this rather tricky turn here, oh my goodness me, as they've gone round there, confusion reigns, and Astana rider on the floor at the top of the picture. Lampreia down.
Just having a quick look, it looked like it might have been 181, which would be Yanni Brajkovic, who's gone down there.
Well, the rider we were just in fact talking about also down there is Yuri Trofimov, a Russian rider on the Katusha team. Well, there they've swerved away from it. The Katusha rider is Trofimov.
Well, in fact, it's Alexander Vinokourov on the left-hand side. He crashed out of the Tour de France last year. That's 189 Alexander Vinokourov. He's the rider on the left-hand side.
And Robert Kieslowski is the rider on the right here, just checking out. Just have another look at this.
I think 181 was there as well, Phil, Yanni Brajkovic. I could feel that crash happening.
Well, it was the Lamprey rider who went first, touch of wheels, and then the others, luckily, almost at a standstill. So hopefully it's just been a loss of ego there, because they seem to be getting themselves organised for it. You're right, it's also Boris Bosic, the ride 182 there in the blue jersey as champion of his country, and 181 Brajkovic, the 2 riders who were roommates last night. And the one on the right here was speaking with Craig Hummer this morning, explaining the accident to Bosic, and they're both down this time, second after we showed you that interview. Well, a little bit of torn lycra there, but hopefully they'll quickly get back in.
I could feel that crash happening as everyone was trying to squeeze their way around that little piece of traffic furniture there on the road. Now these guys will have to chase fairly hard to get themselves back into the main field. But 2 crashes in 2 days for the man from Astana is not going to make his body feel all that good, Borut Bodzik. He went down, as we said, very nastily yesterday. But again, any corner in the Tour de France is dangerous. You never know what's going to be around it. These guys are going around 2,500 miles of France. There's no dress rehearsal. They might go and look at a few sections in the mountains, but these roads, they're very, very much unknown.
No, that's right. They take them as read as and when they find them. They're racing across the part of France now known as the Nord Part de Calais as they race towards Boulogne. And it gets very undulating towards the finish today. In the last 10 miles of racing today, we have 4 climbs, which includes the finishing climb in Boulogne itself. It's quite a tough one. Here we go, bunny hopping again as we leave that traffic circle behind us. We'll take a break. Rejoin us. The 2012 Tour de France on the NBC Sports Network is presented by Michelob Ultra, the superior light beer perfectly balanced for the ultra life. By Competitive Cyclist. Get 20% off cycling apparel and accessories by visiting competitivecyclist.com/TDF and use promo code TDF20. By Strava. Track your rides and compete against friends, locals and pros. Go to Strava. Well, back with the Tour de France as the riders now. This is the Saint-Pierre Collegiate Church here as the riders are about to pass through. They're still trying to get back on, those riders who fell. It shouldn't be a problem. This is what's happened. We've got one rider back at the team car here. Now, Janis Brakovic, who appears to be the worst injured, he's got cuts on his shoulder and his arm. He's being stitched up a little bit here by the doctor, but he crashed out of the Tour de France on the fifth stage last year, Paul, with a broken collarbone. At least it's nothing as bad as that today.
Well, the amazing thing is that four riders from Astana went down at the same time. They were all riding very close together. It's one of those nasty little corners. You go around it, and then all of a sudden, as you're halfway around the corner, right in the middle of the road, there's a traffic island, and there's nothing you can do to move because there are so many riders going around at that time. And going down hard with him was his own teammate, Alexander Vinokourov.
Well, the riders passing beneath the Saint-Pierre Collegiate Church, which, by the way, took 100 years to build during the period 1492. And they're making the way now onwards. They'll get back in the bunch OK. We've got those 5 leaders who have been away since the 3rd mile today, getting together very early on. They got off to a quick start, covering 27.5 miles in the first hour of their escape and building a lead of 5.5 minutes. But I think that's when alarm bells started ringing, because the peloton have pegged them now and in and around 4 minutes. They're holding them till we get to those hills,
And nearly all of the work has been done by Radio Shack Nissan. That little small building just on the side there, by the way, is known as the Bailiwick. It's built in 1600 and it's on the corner of the Grand Place. Its surface area is only 125 square meters, but it is really beautifully decorated in the Renaissance style.
Here we are across the cobble street past the Bailiwick and the Astana boys, 3 of them on the same team. The rider in blue is the champion of Slovenia, Boric, as also on Astana. They're back in the pack and they'll now be able to sort themselves out. So an embarrassing shunt, but happily only a little loss of lycra and a shaving of skin for that one.
On the right-hand side, briefly, the rider in the orange jersey of Rabobank, that was Luis Leon Sanchez. News coming from the team that he's actually improving. He had a lot of pain in his wrist yesterday, but he managed to drag himself through that course and feels that he will improve as the race continues. Lots of crashes always happen in the first week of the Tour de France. Everybody's nervous, everyone's taking risks, and again, I would expect to see a rip-roaring finish up here towards the finishing line in Boulogne-sur-Mer, but lots of attacks will be in store, I would say, Phil, in the last hour of the race, because this is an ideal terrain for men who want to go out on the attack.
And again, very, very nervous. Well, right on the front there in that polka dot jersey, the leader of the King of the Mountains, day 3 on the open road of the Tour de France, and Michael Morcu has been in the lead throughout on every stage so far in a breakaway. Now, we're referring to him from now on as Michael Morcu because the Danish television's informed us they don't pronounce the V on his name, which is Murkoff. So from now on, it's Morcu.
Well, in fact, their explanation was, in fact, he's Danish and he's not Russian, so that's why they came up with that explanation. Anyway, he's a track rider, Phil, and that may be the reason why he's been able to have that speed and ability to search out this breakaway at the start of every stage. And in fact, after this, he's going straight across to London. He's not actually riding the road race at the Olympic Games. He's going to be riding with the Danish pursuit squad.
Well, he's already got a silver medal 4 years ago. I'm surprised at that. I thought he was now concentrating all his effort on the road. He rode the Giro d'Italia last year alongside Alberto Contador, where he was a strong ally. So he's now in the breakaway, trying to build a little lead. If he can stay away to the mountains today, he could probably get himself 7 or 8 points, which could keep him in the lead for a few days.
Well, it wouldn't be unprecedented, Phil, for a rider to participate in the Tour de France and go along to the Olympic Games in the pursuit, because Christophe Moreau did that many, many years ago in 1996 for the French.
So there we are, 5 riders up front. And don't forget, now is your chance to build your very own elite cycling team for the most epic race of the year. It's the Discover Card Fantasy Cycling Challenge. Just go to nbcsports.com/challenge to register now and select your team to compete for daily stage prizes and the grand prize, a Cervelo R5 or S5 bike. That's the Discover Card Fantasy Cycling Challenge, presented by Discover Card. It pays to switch, it pays to discover. The peloton roll on. Their rendezvous is a little bit before the finish in the mountains around Boulogne today. We'll continue on the route to Tours. Welcome back. Well, let's have a look at the USA American standings here. As we see the USA Cycling American standing, TJ Van Garderen in 4th place. After his 4th place finish in the prologue time trial, he's riding high in the white jersey and riding a great Tour de France. Second time for him. Christian van der Velde in 15th place. Tommy Danielson rode to 8th place last year. Is only 31 seconds off this time. And Levi Leipheimer 45. Let's have a look at the others. Chris Horner is still riding strongly. He hurt his knee, but is getting better. George Hincapie in his 17th Tour. We'd like to see Tyler Farrar get up there in the sprints. Dave Z, a strong man on the Garmin Sharp team. All right, well, let's go to early today at the start line, where Steve Perino was talking to Chris Horner.
Chris, everyone was very entertained with regard to the exchange between you and Dirk de Mol when you said, my knee's hurting. Were you expecting the reaction that you got from him?
Yeah, Dirk and I have worked together now for a long time, many years. This is going on year 5, and of course we've known each other in the past before that. So it was, and it's the only reaction you expect. You know, it's either it's suck it up or a little joke to kind of get through the moment. So yeah, but he's 100% fantastic director, and I love working with him.
The role of a Snickers and a Coke with regard to restoring the knee, which we see right now has a little bit of tape on it.
It's the Snickers and the Cokes help the mental aspect, and the tape on the knee helps the physical aspect. So it's a small problem. It's more of a small, tiny little cuts, but they're almost healed now, and so they're just bleeding when I landed on the knee. But I don't think I impacted the knee too much because it's not bruised or anything. So it's just cut. Maybe there were some rocks or something that I landed on. So it seems like it'd be fine.
Coming into this, there seemed there was going to be a shared leadership with you guys. As of yesterday, it was decided that you would be working for Cloden and Schleck. What was the thinking that went behind that decision?
Well, before yesterday, I would say it's the prologue, and clearly we knew going into the Tour de France, at least with myself, you have Frank, you have Frank as a GC guy, you have Claude who should be riding good. We won't know until we get into the mountains and the time trials. And then for myself, before the prologue, you're free, float around. If you have some good legs, go for GC. But of course, when you have Fabien in the yellow jersey and he wins the prologue, that changes everything. And of course, I'm 40 years old. I've been racing for almost 20 years. So I understand what it means when you have a rider in the yellow jersey. It means now all of a sudden he's taking most of the team. And so when you take most of the team to work for yellow jersey and you still have Frank as a GC rider, then of course you got to have somebody look after Frank. So that's obvious, common sense that next guy looking after him would be me, and also helping out with Cancellara in his jersey too.
Well done, Chris. He's a great character, is Chris. I don't know if you notice on the top tube here, Peter Sagan's bike, it says Terminator. It's the first day he's ridden this bike. A special Cannondale production for him. Terminator. I think he earned that title after demolishing the field in the Amgen Tour of California.
Well, in fact, I think he had a bet with Rory Sutherland that they wouldn't make a bike like that for him, but he certainly had. He works at Cannondale nowadays, a former professional cyclist on the American circuit, although I'll have to say that is a very good-looking bike, and I wonder will he terminate today at the top of this climb just outside of Boulogne-sur-Mer. One man who is, we talked about Michael Murkoff getting into the breakaway on every occasion so far today, but how many kilometres has Jaroslav Popovic done on the front end of this main field since we left Liège?
Every time we've looked at television, it has been Jaroslav Popovic, who is a member of the Radio Shack team, doing all of the pacemaking at the front. Now, something happened at the back here. Team Sky have got 3 riders at the back. It may be routine, and it looks to me as though they're just coming back up to the line. They've been down to the team cars, plenty of time to
get back up on good roads like this.
Phil, that's nothing to panic about. There's this kind of changing and movement goes on throughout the whole of the day. Since we left at Orchies this morning, this 122-mile stage, we'll see riders dropping off the back, going to the team car, taking a natural break, taking on board bottles and extra food, and then riding back up to the main field. The big leaders, the men who want to win this race, yes, sometimes even they have to stop at the side of the road for a short period and then get themselves back into the main field. But then very quickly they will ride as quickly as they can up to the front of the pack.
Well, we continue to watch. So we're back up with the leaders now. They're entering the début de ravitaillement, which is the feeding zone where they grab those little bags. So they usually know by the time they reach here, they're approximately halfway through their day, and they are still holding on to a considerable lead. The London Olympics are coming to NBC and the NBC Sports Network. Coverage begins July 25th on the NBC Sports Network, leading up to the opening ceremonies, July 27th on NBC. So the peloton are now heading into that same feed zone where we saw the 5 leaders just go through about 4 minutes ago here. Just inside now, the gap is coming down a little bit.
It certainly is. It's been pegged by Radio Shack Nissan, and over the last few kilometres, I've noticed Team Liquigas Cannondale moving up to the front there, obviously feeling that their man, Peter Sagan, is going to have a very good crack at the victory. It's pretty much tailor-made for him, the finish on the run in towards the line this afternoon. We've done all the flatlands of the north of France around Lille, having left Orchies behind us. We've covered now roughly 60.5 miles of racing. Now we're getting into this very pretty part of France known as Le Boulonnais, the area around Boulogne. But as you get closer to the coast, it starts to get that little bit more lumpy, and the wind starts to pick up as well as it comes in off the English Channel.
Well, this is the breakaway. They've been ahead of the pack now for just on 55 miles today. Giovanni Bernardo, Ruben Perez, Sebastian Minard, Michael Morcu, and Andre Grivko, who is, by the way, is the new champion of his country in both the road race and the time trial. There's the lineup for you.
It's Giovanni Bernardo just putting his hand up there, filling the green jersey there. He's well placed in this breakaway this afternoon. In fact, he's not too far behind in the overall standings. His dad is the owner of the team, but his dad was a very, very good bike rider, turned professional the same year as I did, is 1979, and he finished in the top 6 of the Tour de France on 3 separate occasions, as well as winning the Best Young Rider competition in 1979.
Well, he certainly gave Stephen Roach a tussle when Roach went on to win the Tour de France in '87. Jean Lenné got the yellow jersey on top of Mont Ventoux, not too far from Paris, but in the end he finished 3rd overall, and Roach was the winner there. There's the peloton at the moment. Nobody rushing to get to the front just now. It's always under the charge of Radio Shack.
Well, at this point here, as they come through the feeding station, everyone is very attentive, and they try to be as careful as possible, because it's always a dangerous moment in the day when you go through the feeding station, because you very often find a rider on the wrong side of the road, sees his helper at the last minute and tries to sneak his way across to pick up that bag. Very important to pick up the bag, full of calories, full of food, and 1 or 2 goodies for the second half of the race.
At the moment, the leaders are just under 2.5 miles ahead of the bunch that we are seeing here now, as they're out back in the open countryside, trying to scurry through to the first challenge of the day, which is the sprint. And that is for the big points, 20 for the winner. And again, Paul, with 5 riders clear, I think we're going to see a battle royale from the sprinters for the 6th place.
Yeah, they will fight all the way, and it is a very difficult competition to win. You can see the green jersey there just moving forward, the green helmet. That is Peter Sagan. He's proved to be a prolific winner throughout the season. We saw him dominate the Amgen Tour of California. Well, I thought the first 2 stages were pretty impressive, but then when he came up with stages 3 and 4, then finished off with the final stage around Los Angeles, LA Live, I thought, wow, this kid is going to be something special at the Tour de France.
Well, Dave Zabriskie, number 69 there, just slowing down and watching Urtazan from Euskadi in the orange jersey take his feeding bag there. This is the end of the feeding zone now. This is where they just get on with it, take the food out the pockets. There is an actual drop for the bags, but they just throw them away, and the crowd take them away as souvenirs.
Well, they're pretty impressive souvenirs. You will always find a big crowd after the feeding station, because obviously they look at the race route in the newspapers, they know where the feeding station is going to be, and they make sure that they're there to pick up the souvenirs which get left behind by these professional bike riders.
Well, we're just about now at the end of the sea level part of the course today. From now on in, we're starting to go into the undulations and the ripples, which on occasion will take us up to about 600 feet above sea level. So we're going mountaineering now. We'll take a break. Yes, a combination of Baroque and Flemish architecture, La Ville Bourse will never be confused with a skyscraper on Wall Street, but the ornate building served as France's first ever stock exchange. Consisting of 24 identical houses, creating a courtyard, the structure hosted travelling salesmen and bankers, of course. Trading would take place inside its broad courtyard. Built in 1653, it was commissioned after many bankers in the area became gravely ill after trading in an open market in the rain. Well, I'm delighted to say that today, no rain yet for the riders in the Tour de France, plying their trade now on the roads of northwestern France, heading towards the English Channel. So peloton all together. When you see riders pull off for time out, it usually means they're not racing in earnest. And so the riders continue along now as we continue to look at the scenery around here as well. And slowing down at the moment, that'll be reflected in the time as the riders take time out, as I say. 95 kilometres still to race, Paul. That's about 57 miles to go.
I think Radio Shack playing a very clever game. They're just making sure that they keep that breakaway locked in. They don't want them to get too far off the front end of the race. What they will do is try and keep them at 3-minute advantage. Then as they get to the latter part of the race, they will expect some help to come, of course, from teams like Team Liquigas. We've done most of the flat part of the course. We've gone around Lille. We've left Orchies behind, the flatlands of the Flandre Artois. Now we're getting into the Boulonnais, the ripply part as we get down towards the English Channel. And circumnavigating the Finnish town of Boulogne-sur-Mer is going to be a very exciting for us to watch, but tough ride for the riders.
Well, the flag's indicating a block headwind at the moment. The flags of Flanders from Belgium flying there, the yellow flag with the black line on it, as they are going to, as Paul says, they do circumnavigate Boulogne-sur-Mer. They go to the south and they come back in from the southerly direction up to the north of the town, and uphill is the way to the finishing line as well. It'll be an interesting finish here. And so while this headwind is blowing, we may not see too many angry pedals being turned, because they know the riders up front are going to have a problem in battling this headwind.
Well, Andrei Grivko, you can see there, the champion of the Ukraine.
So 5 riders up front at the moment here. For just under 2.5 hours now, the 5 leaders have been away from the field. That man, Michael Morku, is in there as well. The King of the Mountains leader has been away every day this week so far. The wind, Paul, is indicating it's going to be a tough finale today.
Yeah, but it's going to be complicated, Phil, on the run in towards the finish, because the riders basically pretty much ride all around Boulogne-sur-Mer. So they'll have headwinds, winds from the left, winds from the right. This is Frank Schleck just on the far side. And if you want the riders' favourites for the Tour de France, we've talked a lot about Cadel Evans and Bradley Wiggins. One of the riders' favourites is Frank Schleck. They reckon he showed some very impressive form in the recent Tour of Switzerland.
Well, he did, and I saw him in that race, but I think at the moment he might be concentrating more on Andreas Kleuden to do that. There's Bradley Wiggins with his jaw set and his yellow helmet on. The Team Sky are leading in the team race as well. New rules this year, they get to wear yellow helmets. Hasn't gone down well with all members of the press, but I can't see why not. It doesn't look too bad.
Doesn't look too bad at all. It helps to identify the leading team a little bit easier, I think, than the yellow numbers on the riders' backs. I think what's happened now, Phil, Team Radio Shack have done a lot of work since the start of this race. They've seen that they can control that 5-man breakaway, so now they've decided they will back off a fraction. They'll rest for about 30 or 40 kilometres, then start to accelerate down towards the end. Don't forget, you have to dose your effort throughout the whole of a 3-week event, and it's actually paid good because it's forced Liquigas to come to the front.
And Team Liquigas there, they're thinking of their man, Peter Sagan, to get up front towards the finish today and show us a clean pair of wheels to the rest. Wouldn't surprise me if Fabian Cancellara doesn't want to have a go at the finishing hill as well today as he did in Serein on the opening road race stage last Sunday. Peloton speed along into this block headwind at the moment, and that doesn't all well for a breakaway riding on a long straight road like this. There's still plenty of cycling left on today's stage of the Tour de France. Yes, a proud moment yesterday evening for Peter Sagan, who pulled on the leader's green jersey in the Tour de France. This is his first Tour de France. He's got his hands on the lead in a major competition. As we look here at the 5 leaders today, still hanging on to a considerable lead. The peloton keep yo-yoing, but it's gone out now to 5 minutes and 6 seconds. Now, we are approaching the sprint point for the green jersey standing, so let's have a look how it stands this morning. Peter Sagan, 78. Mark Cavendish, with his win yesterday, went up to 2nd place. Fabian Cancellara didn't score yesterday, so he's still got 55. Matthew Goss, with his placing of 3rd yesterday, is up to 4th. And Edward Boysenhagen, also a man that possibly could pull it off and win today, and that would be a bag full of green jersey points as well for him. But he's up there amongst the leaderboard at the moment. So there is the green jersey. To the right of our picture now, Peter Sagan, just surrounded by 1 or 2 of his teammates. Now, normally this was invented in 1953. It was a competition for the sprinters, but let's learn a little bit more about it. In the Tour de France, the mountain stages are for the climbers, and the flat stages are for the sprinters. With the sprinters unable to climb mountains and be competitive for the yellow jersey, there is motivation for them to battle to the finish in Paris as they seek their prize, the green jersey. While top contenders remain always focused on yellow, sprinters chasing green are not preoccupied with the overall lead. Instead, the key to their Tour success is a fast-paced pursuit of points. Last year, new rules were introduced to focus on a single mid-stage sprint and the finishing line, both for points.
The new point structure for the green jersey is interesting. It definitely changes the dynamic. It used to be the jersey was won almost completely on stage wins, and it was really small, picking off a point here, a point there on intermediate sprints. But now the points go so deep on this mid-stage sprint, and there's so many of them. There's always a sprint for those points.
Last year, the green jersey chase resulted in a long-awaited coronation, as the world's premier sprinter Mark Cavendish finally won green at his 5th Tour de France. But this year, the reigning sprint king could have fierce competition from rising young star Peter Sagan, who arrived at the Tour with 13 wins, and a further victory already in this race gives him a significant amount of momentum. For these speed-oriented cyclists, the true measure of excellence is not whether you can stay with the leader, but how you respond to a series of fast-paced challenges along the way. And ultimately, only one rides to the finish with the right to call himself the premier sprinter at the Tour de France. Yes, and there are 4 riders taking part in this year's race who have known what it's like to take that winner's jersey home from Paris. Mark Cavendish last year, first ever British rider to do that. Alessandro Petacchi the year before, in 2008, it was 3-time world champion Oscar Freire. And Baden Cook became only the 2nd Australian behind Robin McEwen. He took it home in 2003. So, as the riders, you can't put a pin between them. Everybody trying to get in the shelter of the Radio Shack riders at the front. It is still Jaroslav Popovic on the front, followed by Jens Voigt. Maxime Monfort doing a little bit of work there as well. And Team Sky off to the right, keeping an eye on things. So they're moving smoothly through, Paul. The gap, they've got it pegged, but it's gone out a little bit there as they went into that headwind. They've added on about 52 seconds.
Well, just bear in mind, Phil, that now we've left the flat part of the race behind us, and we've done all of the flat rounds around Orchies and all the way around the city of Lille. Now we're getting into the undulating part of this course, and that's going to be really difficult for those riders, those 5 riders in the leading breakaway. The man with the polka dot jersey is in the leading group of 5, but very, very quickly the green jersey sprint point is coming up, and I make it about 11 kilometers to that point. Even though there are 5 riders away, we've seen the sprinters in the main field behind take that sprint point very seriously every day.
Yes, well, I think we'll see the sprinters, the big sprinters, the men we saw battling out the finish yesterday, going for the minor points, because consistency wins you the green jersey. As we've said for the last 3 days, at the moment it is the consistent racing of Peter Sagan who's been cleaning up, and he's on the green jersey leaders board today as the leader. First Tour for him as well, and amongst a lot of people's favourite to win the stage today because of the way he showed his strength on the finishing climb in Serein in Belgium on the opening day of this race.
Well, he'll make a very, very strong statement if he wins stage number 2, but there's a lot of other guys it suits their abilities as well. Guys like, for example, Alejandro Valverde, who won at the top of Old Wollonga Hill in the Santos Tour Down Under. A similar stage he won as well in Paris-Nice, just at the top of a climb, beating the same man he'd beaten in Australia, Simon Gerrans, on that occasion.
Yeah, absolutely right, yes. Well, the breakaway still holding on, still very comfortable. Battling out on the front at the moment is Sebastian Minage in his 4th Tour de France. Now he's being relayed by the polka dot leader and the king of the mountains, and that is Michael Mercu. He's on the Saxo Bank team. Then the orange jersey of Roman Perez, most experienced man. He's got 6 tours under his belt now for Euskaltel Euskadi, number 36 there.
Just going back to that green jersey discussion, Phil, Matthew Goss reckons he really has to get himself some points today, because if he doesn't stay in contact in the points competition and Sagan gets himself a lot of points at the finish line today, it's going to be very difficult to chase him down over the next couple of days. But I have a feeling that the man from Orica Greenedge who might be thinking about the victory could, of course, be Simon Gerrans, because he's the kind of rider who likes a tough finish up to the top of a climb like this one.
Well, it could well be for Simon Gerrans. I'm not sure he's got the explosive power. He certainly is strong if he's not got too many riders with him, but there's one or two guys will feel now that the race is getting into its stride. We're on day 4, stage 3. They'll be fancying their chances. And another name which I have a sneaking suspicion might be there is Alejandro Valverde. He complained he was boxed in by Robert Hessink on the finish the other day up at Serein, but he was feeling very strong, so we'll see. Anyway, 6 miles or 10 kilometres to go now to the sprint. We've got all the flags flying there, the flag of St. George as well, and there it is. That's the 10 kilometres to go. As I say, they'd like to win the prize, Paul. It's not really a big challenge for them for the green jersey.
10 kilometres or 6 miles at this average speed of about 27 miles should take these guys about 13 minutes to get there.
And sorry a little bit about the picture freeze, so we'll move back to the peloton, have a look at brake levers instead here, and the tight grip of the handlebars.
Well, I presume that is going to be the face of Jaroslav Popovic, and yes, it is. This man has finished on the podium in the Giro d'Italia, but here he's on the podium, I think, for the number of kilometres ridden on the front of the race since we left Liège, because we talked about Michael Mercu being in the breakaway, the man who leads the polka dot jersey competition. I'd have to say that Jaroslav Popovic has probably been on the front of this race for about 250 miles so far.
Well, Popovic only won 1 stage of the Tour de France. It was a wonderful lone victory in the beautiful walled city of Carcassonne, right in the south, in the shadow of the Pyrenees, back in 2006. Now, I'm just wondering, Paul, if we're getting towards that last 10 kilometres, are the sprinters going to break up the rule here at the front for the sprinters' teams, for the sprinters, or are they just going to race up to the line as we are now?
I would expect them to start to get organised around about 5 kilometres to go, and then we'll start to see the teams of the sprinters. Orica Greenedge will move forward to try and look after Matthew Goss, and of course Rabobank will try and look after Mark Renshaw. We saw them both very prolific in the intermediary sprints over the first couple of days, and then of course poor old Mark Cavendish, he's going to have to ride on his own, because I don't think Team Sky will try and waste any energy at this point of the race going for the green jersey points competition.
Peeping over the fields here, and Popovic followed by Jens Voigt. One rider is gone into the mix there for the Liquigas Cannondale team, so that's one sprinter who's put a centre man up, because that's Peter Sagan is the sprinter. If he gives it a go towards the line, I think he's got to, because he's in the lead now in the green jersey.
And because of the nature of the finish today, with it being up at the end of a series of little climbs, I think guys like Andre Greipel also have to take the intermediate sprint very seriously indeed. So his team, Lotto Belisol, they will get themselves organised as we get closer to the sprint point.
Well, Grivko in the breakaway here is number 184. He's the Astana rider, peeping in and out. He's actually obscured a little bit just a moment. He's the one in the blue. There he is coming through. He's the double champion of a week ago of his country, which is Slovenia, because Astana rider won the national road race and the national time trial championship. Sorry, the Ukraine is his country. And he was, if you remember, in the prologue time trial, he started number 4 in the prologue, and he held the lead for a long way before the fast riders at the very end of the start list started knocking him down the rankings. Even so, he's only 38 seconds off the race lead of Fabian Cancellara. All that time being lost to Cancellara in the prologue. Right now, of course, he's the virtual leader on the road.
Well, he ended up finishing in 10th place in that prologue, just 15 seconds down when gazing into the face of Jaroslav Popovic here. He really is stamping out rather a nasty little pace to everybody in the main peloton.
I'm not working. I want more money. That's not right.
The peloton now all riding behind the Radio Shack team of the race leader, Fabian Cancellara, as Bradley Wiggins keeps also members in the mix too for Team Sky.
But I'm not sure if you just picked that up on the microphone. I'm just listening into Jens Voigt there. He went up alongside Jaroslav Popovic and says, I'm not working today, I want more money. He's always got something to say, Jens Voigt. 39 years of age, he's an incredible, 40 years of age, he's an incredible athlete. He's always got something humorous to say, and if you are a fan of the social media, he's quite a fun lad to follow because he comes up with some incredible quotes.
Absolutely right. He's on the front at the moment. So as we continue the main field, everybody enjoying the passage of the Tour de France despite the rather overcast conditions. It isn't too cold today, which is good news, I think. Now remember, on Sunday, July 22nd, the IZOD IndyCar Series continues on the NBC Sports Network. Will Power looks to defend last year's win from the streets of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. It's the 2012 Edmonton Indy, Sunday, July 22 on the NBC Sports Network. And by the way, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, that's where Alex Steeder came from, the first Canadian to wear the yellow jersey in the Tour de France. And he wrote to me and told me to say that, so I've just said it. There we are. This is the breakaway of 5 out in front. We'll take a break now, then we'll be up to the sprint points as we bring you this live coverage of the Tour de France. These boys are going to have to learn to sprint in the next segment. We'll see you then. The 5 leaders on today's stage of the Tour de France. We race to Boulogne-sur-Mer, which is on the coast and is the biggest fishing port here in France. These 5 riders again getting away very early on today, breaking clear after 3 miles of the stage of 123 miles. And they're just about 2.5 miles now to go to the sprint. 20 points for the green jersey competition. These riders more interested, though, at least the rider on the front is Morku, the Danish rider in the polka dot jersey. He wants to get into the hills, which start to come thick and fast in the last quarter of the race today. Working well together, the breakaway, as they have been all day. This is Andrei Grivko, the champion of the Ukraine. He's gone to the front, now followed through here in the green jersey, Giovanni Bernardo, whose father is the director sportif of the Europcar team. That's where we're going now, to the sprint point. Is only just down the road, and then all of those series of red circles, that's where the hills lie today. Nobody at the back too concerned about the sprint coming up, Paul, but I would imagine that very soon the sprinters are going to not want to be on the front, but are all going to be craning their necks to see who is on the front.
Well, that will be the important thing. We're just having a quick look here at these riders here. The man here we're looking at is Anthony Roux, who was the most aggressive rider. He was in the breakaway yesterday, if you remember, and then on the run-in towards the finish, he prolonged the agony by jumping away for another 20 kilometres or so on his own.
Well, he was a red number for his fine attacking riding yesterday. He voted the most aggressive rider. Now, I'm just wondering how his hand is today. You may remember yesterday he climbed the Citadel in Namur with his 2 left fingers strapped together because I think he dislocated them. He was holding his arms straight down, couldn't stand the pain over the cobblestones, but he's still in the Tour de France, and that's all that matters to these bike riders.
It's a special race. Everybody wants to get through the Tour de France. It's what all riders push themselves, and they will take a little bit more pain in the Tour de France than they would at any other event during the season, because it's important to be able to say that you've dragged your body around France and you've got your wheels onto the hallowed cobblestones of the Champs-Élysées, and that is an exciting day for any professional bike rider if you can do that.
Well, this is what we expected now. A Radio Shack with Jens Voigt on his lunch break there, chewing away. They've sent a Liquigas rider to do some pacemaking. Team Sky, and the boys in black and the yellow helmets, they've moved up now, of course. They're thinking of Mark Cavendish. and Edvard Boysenhagen will be in the mix as well. Cavendish just out of our vision there, tucked in. Now there is Sagan, Paul, in the green, and this is Boysenhagen in the white.
Well, I tell you what, Phil, I really think this innovation from the organisation of the Tour de France to have just one sprint point out on the course with a lot of points at stakes actually makes this very interesting indeed.
Well, this man is lying last in the race at the moment, Bryce Ferrier. He clearly is sick. He lost 10 minutes on the run into the finish yesterday. Not like him at all. He's a pretty good bike rider.
Well, a great climber. I remember him winning that stage up to the Alpine ski resort in Andorra. I should say the Pyrenean ski resort in Andorra at Arcalis. The leading group now, 5 riders, 2 kilometres away from the sprint point. I wonder if Michael Morkov, like Michael Morku, pretty difficult getting used to his new name, as we've been corrected on a number of occasions by our Danish counterparts. I wonder if he will go for this sprint, because I think he will allow the other guys. He's got one thing in the back of his mind, and that's to survive and take King of the Mountains points. So I doubt if he will mix it in the sprint.
I agree. There he is, the 27-year-old, dreaming of maybe a gold medal. Well, he might find if he does get a gold medal in London at the Olympics, he'll have to beat the British team pursuers to get it. We'll know more about that in about 4 weeks' time. But Michael Morku now thinking more about the hills ahead and to keep his lead going down towards the Jura Mountains at the weekend. There's the peloton there, a little bit behind. They're not going to be contesting the first place, but the 6th place sprint, I think, again, will be a dress rehearsal maybe for the finish.
Big question in my mind is, will Mark Cavendish actually go for the intermediate sprint? Is he thinking about the green jersey? He said he's not. He said he's looking for stage victories, and he's thinking about an Olympic gold medal after the Tour de France. However, you know, he's a real competitor. I think the first 2 sprints are out on the open road, on the stage 1 and 2. He did that to blow out the cobwebs, because he's not been in competition a lot so far this season. So maybe he may well miss out on this one and save himself for the next real flat stages. There is Peter Sagan in that green jersey. You can see him. He's in a nice position there in about 15th place, while the leading group of 5, they're just 1 kilometre to go. They should reach that finishing line in around about 1 minute and 10 seconds.
And these are the 5 leaders. Well, Cancellara is in there as well, back in that group. So we're approaching the sprint then in Sonlec, and it's 800 metres to go. I think they'll just continue to work together. Maybe they won't even attack each other here. I think you're right about Morku. He's waiting for the hills now, and he needs the help of these 4 guys to get him there and at least knock off a couple of the hills, because only the leader in the 4th category climb gets any points in the competition.
Well, once he's gone over the top, he's only got about 13 kilometres. Once we've gone through the sprint point, there's only 13 kilometres to the first climb of the day, and he'll be seriously interested in getting an extra point if he can, because this leader's jersey is giving him an awful lot of publicity to his team.
300 metres to the sprint. Morku goes through. Ruben Perez in the orange goes following him through. Grifko in the light blue. The champion of his country, the Ukraine, in the time trial and the road race. There is the banner. Well, this is going to be a great sprint, isn't it, when we approach this with the main field, for those who really want the points, like Peter Sagan, maybe Mark Cavendish, Matthew Goss and Andre Greipel. And they're not racing it through. They've just gone as who is on the front gets the prize. So it is the 82-hour rider, Sebastian Minard, followed by Bernardo in 2nd place.
Well, for these riders, they've got to keep themselves together as a unit. They know that if they want to survive, they have to work in an alliance, an entente cordiale, if you like, to make sure they can work as a unit, keep that advantage as much as possible. It's Sebastian Minard gets himself a 1st place, 2nd place Giovanni Bernardo, and 3rd place for Michael Morku. But behind, we will see a more serious sprint, Phil, for just 6th place.
We most certainly will, because every point counts. The man that wants to win the green jersey competition. 4 previous winners of that competition are in this race, including last year's defending green jersey, Mark Cavendish. And we're interested to see if Mark is interested in the green jersey this year, whether he wants to have a slightly easier Tour de France because of the upcoming Olympic Games. But I think when he's in with a chance of winning the points, my feeling is he's going to put them in the bank just in case. There's the standings at the moment, Paul. Sagan 78, Cavendish, Cancellara. How many do we get for 6th place?
Well, we get 10 points for the 6th place rider. It goes down by 1 point per place, then down to 1 point for 15th place.
So So we're looking at 10 points. That's a lot of points, and they know it back in the bunch, and I think Matthew Goss will try to get into the mix. They also use it as a test against themselves, the big sprinters, to see just if they can dress rehearse and get their sprint correct.
Well, for Orica Green Edge, they're a team that brought a very big lineup for them, and Matthew Goss. Of course, Brett Lancaster, the big track rider, man who's won the prologue in the Tour of Italy, he will be an important part of that lead out. And Baden Cook as well, who's been, I think, sprinting exceptionally well this year, mixed in a little bit with some South African flavour in Daryl Impey.
And it's still on the front here. Jaroslav Popovic, who's been on the front virtually all day now. He just moves over if anybody volunteers, but if they don't, he comes and keeps this tempo going nicely. Jens Voigt on his right shoulder, peeping in and out of the picture. Far left is also Chris Horner, the American. And everybody not holding a conversation at all now. They're getting very tense out there just at the moment.
Well, if you see the complete yellow helmet there, just right in the middle behind Jaroslav Popovic, that is Bradley Wiggins. He's hardly ridden outside of the top 15. And just behind him, a couple of seats back, you can see two darker red and black jerseys. Well, the one on the right-hand side there was Cadel Evans.
And not far away from Bradley Wiggins was the world champion, Mark Cavendish. So I feel he is going to have a go at this today. I think when he finds himself in a position, he's going to take points where he can and then just see how it all unfolds later.
Well, the first 5 riders through there, we saw that quite easily. Minard ahead of Bernardo, Morkov, Perez and Grivko taking 5th place. I actually thought that Grivko in that blue and yellow jersey, the champion of Ukraine, I thought he might have had a little go.
Well, they've got Stuart O'Grady on the front now, riding for the Orica Green Edge, which means they're looking to lead out Matthew Goss, their man. But Mark Cavendish has also moved up in the line. The green jersey of Peter Sagan coming up alongside Mark Cavendish as well, and could well be coming up on the back wheel of Matthew Goss, just peeping into our picture. So the big names are moving up. That's Bernard Eiser now. Look at where Mark Cavendish is.
Look at all the faces of these riders. The orange jersey there and Rabobank, that is Mark Renshaw. He's pretty much on his own, but this is a serious lead out by Orica Green Edge. It's led out initially at 1 kilometre to go there by Stuart O'Grady. He will ride as fast as he can. Less 800 metres to go now, and Orica Green Edge are the team who are all riding for Matthew Goss. They put off. There's a rush on the left of the side as well on the road there, as they try to bring through their riders on Team BMC with TJ Vanguard in the white jersey moving up. But this is Stuart O'Grady. Now in his 16th Tour de France. He's the first lead-out man. They are hoping the last man of that line will be their man, Matthew Goss. But guess who's on the back wheel of Gossi? And that is Mark Cavendish, who's locked in. And Peter Sagan is locked in on the back wheel of Cavendish. He knows it as the rush suddenly comes on the left of the road here, as it's Greipel starting to be led out to the line now. Well, Sagan's recognised it as he tries to take him on. Gossi tries to go to the middle. Got a bit sandwiched out there, but as they race up the line, Cavendish, he's got open space, and Mark Cavendish has got time to look and say, what's your problem? He gets it and has no problem at all in taking that. It was Kenny Van Hummel who was behind him, and Mark didn't seem to like the way he was sprinting. I think he had a few words to say about the way a few riders there were sprinting as he came up to the line. Looking back there, he is the fastest man in the world, Phil. There is absolutely no doubt about that at all. He got boxed in. I thought he was in the wrong position. Then all of a sudden, the door opened in front of him, and just watching the way he looks at this man here to say, what are you doing? Well, he really is the fastest man, and he's even dictating who's going to win when he's actually... Oh, that was why he was sort of squashed out of it. And really, it was Peter Sagan who was diving for the wheel of Kenny Van Hummel there. And it caused a second kick from Mark Cavendish, who then went over the top of Sagan. He wasn't impressed with that man sprinting, and he was certainly very unimpressed with Kenny Van Hummel sprinting as well. A lot of these guys, Phil, in the opening days of the Tour de France, they take all kinds of incredible risks. A sprinter almost checks out his brain at 200 metres ago. Mark Renshaw also went past Kenny Van Hummel there and had a couple of words to say to him too. Well, he's a big winner, Kenny Van Hummel, even so. So, Cavendish going on a little bit there with Kenny Van Hummel. Well, they're going to spend a lot of time together over the next 3 weeks, and so they want to make sure that they sprint straight. I tell you what, Phil, that, you know, a lot of guys, because they're not quite at the same level, they will take risk and they create danger, and you don't need to have danger in a sprint like that when you're charging up to a line at 40 miles an hour. No, well, there won't be a sprint quite as close as that, I don't think, today when we get to the finish, because it's quite uphill.
Now, the crosswind has also caused a problem with that sprint. As you can see, it pushed the riders over to the right of the road as they race for the line. And you have to read the wind direction and before you launch your final move for the line, because if you get it wrong, that wind will destroy the effort. And that was some effort, I must say. There, 129 is Van Hummel. You see, comes across Mark. He forces Mark. He takes his line a little bit, pushes Mark over to the right. He had to check himself. That let through Peter Sagan. But Cavendish has this ability. He's able to check, drop back, change his line, and then he has this incredible kick. And away he goes again. And, of course, a little bit of adrenaline as well. He was going up, and I think he was complaining at the same time he was winning there. So he gets the 10 points at stake and edges closer to that green jersey he won last year. We just can't make our minds up whether he's racing for it or not, but right now he obviously is. I think we can show you the situation overall in the green jersey competition now. There we are. He gets the 10 over Van Hummel. Remember, this is for 6th place. Van Hummel's 7th. The breakaway still clear. Sagan gets 8. And the top 10 complete by Huterovic. This is the situation now. Cav is still in 2nd, but he's closed in now. He's 13 points behind Peter Sagan. Cancellara not getting involved. He's trying to keep yellow. The green was his for 2 days. That was more or less by default rather than intent. So the field now can rethink the rest of the race now that they've got rid of the green jersey points for the day until we get to the finishing line. We now have a little matter of some steep and short undulating climbs before the finish. The 2012 Tour de France on the NBC Sports Network is presented by Cervelo, engineered to make you simply faster. By Castelli, cycling apparel designed to give you an unfair advantage. By America's Natural Gas Alliance, smarter power today. And introducing the Runner by Clean Bottle, the only running holder with a special pocket for your iPod or smartphone. Available exclusively online at cleanbottle.com. Welcome back. We're looking at La Lie River here, which courses down across France. There's the defending champion of the Tour de France, Cadel Evans, concentrating, got his team all around. George Hincapie is eating his lunch, protecting him in his 17th Tour. And Cadel now deciding, that's a good idea, George. I think I'll eat as well and join you at the lunch table. No problems for Cadel at the moment. He's very happy with his team. He's happy with the way the whole team is riding, looking after him. Look around. All the boys with the black sleeves at BMC are all around their man. And Cadel Evans, that does a lot for his morale. Little smile through the gap there now of Mark Cavendish. You caught a glimpse in his white World Championship jersey, so the adrenaline rush of the moment is behind him. Still got these 5 boys out in front. They went away today 3 miles into the stage. Best placed in the breakaway is Andrei Grivko. 38 seconds is the gap he was behind at the start. And there in the rainbow jersey is Mark Cavendish, now having a little chat with the champion of Norway. And that is Edvald Boysenhagen, who's also his Sky Cycling teammate, as they ride in a very safe place of the peloton. You should never say that, I guess, but he's not too far from the front of the pack. All those red jerseys down there are Team Katusha, the Russian squad. And Oscar Freire says he hasn't really found his sprinting legs yet, but he's getting better every day. And, you know, it is a finish that Oscar Freire might well have a go at today up the climb. 3 times a world champion, a strongman sprinter. The hill won't hold any fears for him today. First of all, though, little matter of bridging the gap up to these leaders, and it's still holding out, edging the odd second. It's 4 3/4 minutes just now. This is the back of the peloton. And again, the riders at the back are just waiting for orders from their team leaders as to what they have to do. Nice to see Bryce Feylieu has come back up here, number 94. I don't think he's very well at all. He lost 9 minutes and 55 seconds yesterday, shaking his legs a little bit there. I think he's anxious to just cancel out this day's stage as well. Let's have a look at that sprint again. Here it is. The wind blowing from the left of our picture, which makes it difficult for the riders coming onto the left. Cavendish in the white was sliced out of it by 129, also in a white jersey, going for the line now. Sagan got his wheel, though, of Kenny Van Hummel, and that really annoyed Mark Cavendish, who quickly thought, I'm going to go up and tell you what I think of you, which he did. And, oh, by the way, I'll also take the 10 points for the green jersey as well. So Mark Cavendish, he's definitely the fastest man. If he gets the right start at the sprint, I don't think anybody can match his speed in this year's Tour de France. But combinations change every day, and the riders will go away each time thinking, now how do we get the better of Mark Cavendish? They'll change their sprint approach to the line every day until they finally master the man from the little island of the Isle of Man, just about 80 miles off the coast of England. Well, these boys getting themselves to grips now with the climbs of the day, and this is why Michael Morku was in the breakaway. He wants the few points available to build a little lead in that King of the Mountains competition, which will keep him in the jersey for a few more days. And the speed today, just on 26 miles an hour, the average speed of the riders, which is a very, very quick. That's 41.7 kilometers an hour. It's quite a quick day, I think.
Well, considering the fact that they've had a big headwind for the majority of the day, it's not a bad average speed at all. Now these 5 riders, they're picking up the first 4th category climb of the day, the Côte de l'Éperchie. That's at 132 kilometers. There's only 1 point, and I'm sure Michael Morku would like to survive to the next climb of the day, which is a 3rd category climb. But there's 2 points for the first rider over there and 1 point for the 2nd place rider.
Right, so the 5 leaders now, it's worth their time now. They have to go early. The peloton would be much more vigilant if it was nearer the hills, so they went very early today, 5 kilometers into the stage, 3 miles. They've got the lead. They're going to get into there. And I don't know how Michael Morku is doing this, Paul. It's his 3rd long day in the front. We'll have had about 15 hours of racing on the road by the end of this day, and he's been in the lead, or will have been, for probably 13 hours of them.
Well, he's looked at... The thing is, the breakaway's gone very early on each occasion. Now, he's a track rider, comes from a very good track background, and he has that ability, that acceleration in the early part of the race. So once he sees the breakaway form, then he's been able to jump across that breakaway. He's usually been the guy to move across to the breakaway as it's formed. And it took about 5 kilometers this morning for the breakaway actually to form. There were 3 or 4 little flurries of attacks to begin with. Then all of a sudden it established, and Mirko jumped across to it.
Well, the farmers decided to take time out from the fields and the crop spraying just to see the Tour de France pass by as we head towards the west coast. Well, let's have a look at our Road ID Challenge fan predictions and see who you thought would win today's stage. I look forward to this, and I don't know till I see them come up on the screen who you have actually predicted. So that's the Road ID Challenge fan. The answer is, Peter Sagan. Well, you're all joining me today. 25%, 70% for Mark Cavendish, 6% for Cadel Evans. He's worth more than that. And I think Philippe Gilbert also worth more than 6% of you. Anyway, head on over to roadid.com/ride to make your predictions for tomorrow's stage, and you'll be entered to win daily prizes and a 2013 Trek Madone. Here we are. We're now onto the climb of the day, the Col de la Perche, which is a 4th category climb, and the crowd have obviously got here in their number. It's only 3/4 of a kilometre up, about half a mile. The climb itself doesn't climb very high, but they're all short and steep. 7% gradient, and they're making the King of the Mountains, Michael Morku, take the riders up the climb. And if they're all gentlemen, they'll let him win it as well. Just a single point on the top. Winner takes all on these 4th category climbs under the new regulations, which started last year. It would have been the first 3 in the old rules. Now it's just the leader. The reason is these small climbs, they don't want a rider to walk home winning them all as King of the Mountains when you've got the giants of the Alps and the Pyrenees. They carry the big points.
Well, that was the idea. They changed this in the King of the Mountains classification, as they did the same with the sprint competition, to have that one sprint on the day with a lot of points at stake. And I think it's made for a much more exciting competition, either the King of the Mountains or the green jersey points classification.
So Morku just looking around him, just checking, particularly if Ruben Perez, who's in the Euskadi colours here, nearest camera, orange, because he's a pretty good climber, and he's also a specialist of the lone breakaways in the stage race tours. Solid performer in all of the Grand Tours, but never won a stage.
I think Perez is probably the most dangerous rider in this group, although watch out for Giovanni Bernardo, because in the Dauphiné, the Critérium du Dauphiné, in the early part of this year, he led the King of the Mountains for a number of days.
Yep. Well, overall, at the moment, in the King of the Mountains competition, Morkov is a clear leader. He's got 4 points, and Peter Sagan and Urtasun is 1 each behind, and there's only 1 for the top of the climb, as I've said. So as they come up towards the summit, the French flag is flying, Morkov has taken pride of place at the front, and he's just warning the boys, don't anyone make a move. This is my point. This is why I've helped you all stay clear of the field, and they're not going to challenge him. Well, that's fair enough, isn't it?
Yep, but he will want to survive. He'll want this breakaway to survive. He's not taking any chances, though, as he accelerates away there. It's amazing what this man has done for a single point. And let's not forget he's now going to have a massive total of 5 points.
Well, he's got 5 points, but 5 climbs are behind him. The wind still drifting from our right now as they've changed direction, but there's a lot of changes direction right now as we start to go into the undulations. As we head towards the finish in Boulogne, we go right around, plunging south, then we turn and head north for the finishing line today. So all of the wind that blows is going to hit them sooner or later. So there's the peloton. Well, that's a single point. That means he's got 5 points overall now. And there it is for you. And nobody else has got any more. Urtasun, Sagan and a host of others are right behind him as the 4-5 leaders now on terrific racing roads where they twist and turn now. Good descents here as well, which could also help the riders up front and perhaps not the peloton. We'll see the peloton over the climb after the break. Well, you rejoin us. We're still on the climb of the Côte de la Pêche, but for the peloton now, as the gap is still approaching that 5-minute mark, a steady tempo here, and there's no interest in the prizes at the top because there aren't any for the peloton as they continue. Well, we can now join Craig Hummer, who is inside the race on the cell phone. He has the seat in the house. Craig.
Guys, a very fun and unique perspective for me today to be in the Team Liquid Gas second car. You know, for the guys here back in the motorcade following the racers, it's a lot like they have their day set up before that feed zone. Very relaxed. We had a nice 3-olive penne pasta with mozzarella here in the car, a couple coffees, but then when we got close to that sprint, it was time to spring into action. And as you guys know, if you're driving a team car, you have to have the precision of a surgeon, you have to have the response time of an ER team, and you have to have nerves of steel. And right when we saw those guys get close to the sprint, that's exactly what all these teams cars did. It was an amazing pecking order that they have established out here behind the riders, and really the reaction after Sagan, was unable to take that intermediate sprint was very noticeable in the car. Every point, as we've talked about, matters, and it's going to be a fight every day.
Thanks very much, Craig. The things you do for a free lunch, never mind, as we've just seen a problem to Bryce Feliu here. When you look, he's out. He's riding the race, having lost 10 minutes with sickness yesterday. Now he's got a bike problem. Man that won a stage of the Tour de France a couple of years ago in Andorra, and also held the King of the Mountain lead for a while on that occasion. Peloton are getting a bit angry now. Yes, the pressure's gone on a little bit now, Paul. Time to lift up the tempo, I think, and it's been left to Radio Shack. 4:31 is the gap. It's come back ever so slightly. Morkov, or Morku, I should say, is now trying to nip through these little hills, grab as many points as he can before the cavalry catch up.
Well, he's got about a 20-kilometre ride until he gets to the next climb of the day, the Côte de Mont-Violet. And that is a third category climb, and there'll be 2 points available for the first rider to cross over that one, and 1 point for the second place rider. He will try and amass as many points as he can, because actually, Phil, if he gets a big number of points today, he could keep that lead in the King of the Mountains competition for 3 or 4 days, because over the next couple of days, we really are going through the flatlands of northern France.
Well, they're picking up a slight tailwind at the moment, judging by the way they are now moving. Now we've got, I saw a Radio Shack rider with his hand up just this moment ago, and this also has happened. The riders here seem to be saying, come on, let's all work together now. This is Jaroslav Popovic, who's been on the front almost since the start today. On the far left of our picture, Stuart O'Grady in the white. He's not interested in getting involved in any argy-bargy, so anyway, they're back on it. But there are a couple of riders now starting to work at the front. And Cancellara, in his bright yellow jersey as leader, has moved up now into 5th place. This is now the dangerous section of the race. The speed will be up, the descents are twisting, they're narrow. We're constantly going up small, sharp climbs. We're heading now to the Côte de Mont-Violet, which will come only 21 miles from the finishing line today. That's 33 kilometers if you want to work in kilometers, as we're now seeing the serious part of the tour is now beginning. That's for sure now. and bringing up Team Sky on the right as well. Ooh, and there was a rider that almost hit the side of one of the Team Sky riders. I thought for a moment we were about to see tangled metal going all over the place. Take a look at the bushes behind. The wind is beginning to blow, as it does in this region. And if ever they break out of the shadow of these little fells they're in at the moment, they will catch the full blast off the channel, the English Channel, that is. Sagan still dead centre at the moment too. Everybody now getting nervous. Here we go again. Now, don't forget, tomorrow morning, the Tour de France continues on the NBC Sports Network at 8 Eastern. And more climbs tomorrow, but not so many. And we're off to Rouen tomorrow. And tune in nightly at 8 Eastern for Tour de France Prime Time on the NBC Sports Network. Nice view there of the coastline. That's where we're going today, to Boulogne-sur-Mer on the sea. This, it looks like his rider Hejidal darting back through. Here's poor old Bryce Fairview still dodging amongst the cars. But here is the leader of the Garmin Sharp team, the winner, the first Canadian ever to win the Giro d'Italia, which he did last month. And he's now regaining back because he's in amongst the cars here. So I don't know what's happening. He's caught off the back of the field. And judging by the speed on this descent and the fragmented convoy behind, it's going to hurt him to get back at the moment. This is an urgent moment. There's no teammates come back at all to help him, which is not usual at this stage of the race. Just gone past the teammate there, which is not a teammate, rather. It's Andrei Kashekin of the Astana team. There's a problem for an Euskadi boy with a flat tyre on the front. Very unlucky to puncture at this moment because they're on a descent and the peloton is well strung out, and so are the following convoy of cars. I'm sure he'll get back when the concertina closes up, but energy he didn't really want to waste today, I would think, for rider Hejidal. So we'll take another break as the peloton passes the school and the polka dot jersey. Hi, guys. Stage 3 of the Tour de France, routine for some, difficult for others. 5 riders breaking away right from the gun today. Then we had a crash involving Yanni Brejkovic and also Alexander Vinokurov. Sebastian Minard won the intermediate sprint, but he didn't really sprint at all in the green jersey. More importantly, Cavendish got best of the rest. The current gap now is 4.5 minutes. Well, it's been that way for quite some time. So I have to say, Paul, that with a gap like this now, we're heading into the hills. It's quite a dangerous finish, isn't it, today? Well, it's dangerous for 2 reasons. Because of the fact that you've got 6 climbs on the day, 3 of those climbs coming in the last 10 miles of the race, and the roads are very, very narrow, and they're going to be very tactical. It's going to be very difficult to hold back lots of attacks. Well, at least rider Hejidal has now rejoined the back of that field, and so too is Alexander Vinokurov. So they're now facing the situation where they can now get on with racing towards the finish. Rider Hejidal had a bit of a problem. He was on the side of the road. One of his teammates, Robbie Hunter, is with him at the time, and they're both on the right of the road. A little bit of a fall there, I think, for Hejidal, and a problem too for Vinokurov. But now back up to the front of the race here. They're driving on. So we're looking here at Liquid Gas Cannondale as they continue. And it's interesting now, they've got faith in Peter Sagan today for sure now, otherwise they wouldn't put 2 of Sagan's teammates to drive the pace. So they're anxious now to start making an impression on that breakaway. 4 minutes 11 seconds, 54 kilometres to go, about 35 miles maximum to the finish, and it is a difficult road now. This is going to lead, as it always does, Paul, to a very nervous end to the Tour de France again today. Yeah, but this is much more difficult to control, Phil, as they charge into town here, because you're going up and down all of the time, and it's very, very difficult for any of the teams to actually control the race, and you will see a lot of attacks going on. Well, the Chateau of Parenty here was built in 1785 by Gaspard de Gédéon Levasseur. Interesting name, Levasseur, because we're in the home area of Cedric Vasseur, a yellow jersey wearer of the Tour de France in Chartres, where we go at the end of this race.
Yeah, but for the moment, you can see the nervousness, the speed in this main field. It's almost as if we're in the last 20 kilometres. That's Chris Horner over on the right-hand side, moving himself to the front end of the line of riders here, coming up to have a quick chat with Jaroslav Popovic. Look at the big smile. These boys, yes, it is rather hard. It is rather fast. Almost certainly we're running along at a speed here now starting to approach 30 miles an hour.
It's been quite a nippy pace today because the wind is constantly changing direction. At the moment, the riders are profiting, I think, from a little bit of a tailwind here. The big broad frame of a man, I think it should be a swimmer, shouldn't he, Andrei Grivko, with shoulders like that. The double champion of the Ukraine, as he comes up to just on 3.5 hours in front now. Anxious faces here of the leaders. They know now they want to stay away for as long as they can. It's not impossible today for a breakaway to succeed. The terrain is absolutely perfect. It's not what the riders at the back want, though, particularly the yellow jersey of Fabian Cancellara. He only has to catch these riders and finish with them to keep that leader's yellow jersey. Well, we've started the climbs now, but we've got 5 of the 6 still to come. It's a tough ride in home. Welcome back. You're looking at live pictures. This has happened about 40 seconds ago. There has been a big crash towards the middle and back of the peloton. Riders restarting here as they get away. And 1 or 2 riders left on the road, and this is not good for rider 109 because that is one of the strong men on Sky Cycling, which is Konstantin Sivtsov. He's a very valuable member of that squad. Looks as though he's been touched a little bit there. The peloton were really beginning to race quickly, so I think we can try and show you that again. This is Vinokurov rejoining the back of the peloton, and just in time to see the crash in front of him. And it was really towards the back of the pack here. Most of the riders managing to just stop. Robbie Hunter right in our camera to the left there in his South African champion's jersey, and taking the quick way round there is Nicholas Ede in 84 in the red. He was in the breakaway yesterday. See if we can see anything more from this angle. The front was absolutely flying at this moment. As we try to appear through the helicopter there, not very easy. Jens Voigt adjusting his racing jersey at the second rider in the line, and then all of a sudden the cameras cut to the back and these riders were on the floor. These are the remnants getting away from the back. A massive blockage on the road here. The rider lying on the road there is Sivtsov from the Sky Cycling team. There was a couple of riders from Garmin Sharp also delayed, but they seem to have moved off. Most of it's just sorting out the tangled metal and getting back on the way. Ertezun also down there as well, I believe, who's in the King of the Mountains competition at the moment. Sagan's got a flat tyre as well, which may have been caused by the crash or may not have been. He is broken away. I think the rider from Garmin Sharp was indeed Tyler Farrer, who was left on the road. They had a teammate with him, and I believe he's on his bike again now. But Sagan, all the confusion happening in a split second, he's just changed the wheel now to get back into the race. So he may have damaged the wheel and it had to be changed there. He's taken his chance. Now he's got to get back in the action. Just looking down there, just look to the top end to the right there. There we are, number 63, and that is Farrer on the ground. And he's got his teammate, Johan van Summeren, trying to move his bike so he can get up, and he can. This is Sivtsov, and this is rather sad for Team Sky. This is something they don't want to see, losing one of their strong men. Let's hope they can get him back on his bike. Well, Sivtsov left on the road there, Paul. Let's hope the Sky can get him back. He's a valuable member of the Sky Cycling team. Tyler Farrer was down there for Garmin Sharp. And this poor man, I think he might have damaged his wheel in the shunt, but he's had a wheel change for Peter Sagan. And he's left out on his own just now.
Well, I don't think it'd be very long before his squad sends a couple of riders back to help him. He, I think, just had a mechanical because of that accident. What can happen sometimes is when people are braking in front, somebody doesn't brake hard enough behind and they come out and they rip a couple of spokes out of your back wheel. And that may be what happened to Peter Sagan. But as you can notice now, it's not his team Liquigas at the front who are doing the pacemaking. It's now Movistar, and that was Jose Ivan Gutierrez. He's in the convoy of cars at Peter Sagan, so he shouldn't really have too much of a problem getting back into the peloton.
He's not panicking. He's just waiting for his moment to go around the vehicle one at a time and get back up into the peloton. He keeps looking over his shoulder, so I think he might have a few riders behind him, and he's waiting to see what their progress is. Now, a lot of riders weren't on the floor, but they were stopped on the road. and so there's quite a big bunch of riders coming back to this race. Dangerous moments, but the Movistar riders now, as you say, Gutierrez getting to the front. That tells me that Alejandro Valverde wants to win the day's race.
No, he certainly does. He's very keen to get himself the victory. It's an ideal victory finishing line for him if he can.
And this is the chase back of Tyler Farrer now. He was on his numbers flickering in the wind. There was one rider, Johan van Summeren, stayed with him, but it looks like Farrer's having to go on alone. No, there he is.
Well, that's the big man from Garmin Sharper, Johan van Summeren, wearing number 67. All of a sudden, Phil, you're going on a nice little ride through the Boulonnais part of France, just on the outskirts of Boulogne-sur-Mer. Then next minute, it's total chaos. And that's the way the Tour de France can be for the whole of the first week.
198 riders on narrow roads approaching the finish, on roads that duck and dive and go up sharp climbs. If you want to win the Tour de France now, you've got to be in the front. Bradley Wiggins is well placed, and looking now further to the breakaway here, they'll be totally unaware of what's going on, but the gap is now beginning to come down. The return to the peloton of Peter Sagan, almost anyway.
Well, the back end of the peloton, just in front of him there, wearing number 104, that is Bernie Eisel, the pilot fish for Mark Cavendish. They've managed to reintegrate into the main field, but there's still a lot of riders left behind scrambling to try and make contact.
So they'll safely get back in now, and they must have got the message, because they've put a teammate of Sagan right on the front to drive now, and Team Lotto also going on the front. Might be thinking that Andre Greipel can get up the hill and win the sprint. I wouldn't put too much faith in that myself.
Well, you never know. Some of these guys, they're very good at the one-day classics, and these kind of climbs that we're looking at on the running towards the finish are explosive climbs. They're only around about 1.2 kilometers in length, so the sprinters may well start to feel that they have a chance of surviving.
Well, still at the back of the race with the Garmin Sharp duo here. Van Summeren on the right picked up the bike off Tyler Farrer near his camera now, and waited for him to stand up, and now they've got together. They're quite a way behind, but you know, there's still other riders behind them too, as we are now well and truly into the undulations now as we head up towards the finish.
5 climbs in the last part of this course now, and we're starting to line up for them. The next one that we will see on the horizon will be the Côte de Mont-Violette, followed by the Côte de Erquelingue, and then it's a real repetitive nature as we get very much closer to the finish line. These climbs will be getting thrown at the riders every 3 or 4 miles.
And there's more trouble here. And this is probably as a result of damaged material from the crash, but this is AG2R, and let's hope it is not Nicolas Roche who's been delayed here. It's his birthday today.
Yes, he's 28 years of age. In fact, it's Jean-Christophe Perrault, who's an incredibly good mountain biker. He's stopped at the side of the road. He's going to have to try and get himself back into the peloton.
Well, this is teamwork for you. They've given him a new bike of his teammate. A bit close to our camera, that one. As they now get back on, they leave their teammate, and number 71 is the leader of the team. That is Perrault, their second wheel, and they're now going to get him quickly back to the race and leave his poor teammate there to get back as best he can. The peloton now getting a little bit more commonsensical, I think. And again, Team Sky in those yellow helmets, just checking out who's on the front as the AG2R try to get their team leader, Christophe Perrault, back up to the peloton. The team cars take the correct positions behind the race and form the convoy again. Well, the pressure is really on, and you know, this course now twists and turns, ducks and dives, roads stay narrow. Those crashes could come at any moment of the race running into the finish, but let's hope they don't. The race goes on now to its most exciting phase of the day. We'll see you in a moment. Cadillac Tour leaders in yellow since the start. Fabien Cancellara, Peter Sagan got the lead in the green jersey yesterday. Morku has always been the leader of the King of the Mountains, and TJ Van Garderen is the best young rider in the white jersey. Let's get back to the action as the peloton now. This is the breakaway. They're still clear as we get into the last 44 kilometers of the day, or 27 miles. This is Grifko passing through picture. Morku is here, and so too Sebastian Minard. And this now is Philippe Gilbert grabbing a drink here. Well, he's a lot of people's favourite to win today. He's a specialist for those uphill finishes. Sadly, it has been announced that Konstantin Sivtsov, the team man on Team Sky, we saw him on the road, has been taken to hospital and abandoned the Tour de France. That really is very sad, and it's a very serious problem for Team Sky, that you need every man in the Tour de France. So there's the big pack now reassembling there. Let's have a look. This was the situation when we left the crash scene. 109 there. Sivtsov trying to get up. It looks as though he may have stunned himself. His helmet's on one side of his head. He tried to stand up. He couldn't do it. He's talking there. And he's talking with the team officials. This is the race doctor here coming now just to check on him. But they made the decision to pull him out the race. So maybe a little bit of problem there. Let's hope not too serious. So as we look here, the crowd are cheering everybody on. Philippe Gilbert's had a drink, Paul. He's had a chat in the team car with Jim Okovic. I think he's in the team car, and now he's settling back in the race. These boys are still holding on to 3 minutes of the lead. Gilbert, a possibility today?
Well, I'm not sure. He was sitting at the back. I think he was just going for a quick chat. Maybe he was looking for permission to race the final few kilometres this afternoon, because obviously BMC's philosophy at the race here is to do everything for Cadel Evans. He's the defending champion of this bike race, but Philippe Gilbert is a winner. He's a prolific winner. Last year he was the dominant character on the international circuit, and this is the sort of finish that could suit him.
Well, it most certainly is. He proved that last year when he won a climb called Les Alouettes, the Larks, and he won the stage there. 3:01, they're losing, but they're not losing very quickly yet, are they, as they go towards the last 5 climbs of the day?
Well, over the last 10 kilometres, they had lost exactly 1 minute, and that is my favourite little recipe, which means that if they continue to do that, they will get caught before the end. Jean-Christophe Perrault had a mechanical, number 71 there. Now he's back in the main field, and he will have also had a little bit of panic on board. He rode an excellent Tour de France last year, but he will be thinking about the Olympic Games. The climbs now, we've got 1 behind us and 5 in front of us, including the finishing climb, which climbs up around about 800 metres, and it is a nasty little brute at the bottom.
And this is one little climb that doesn't carry any points facing the riders right now, because there's not many flat roads in this region of France, as they now run up this climb here, being driven on by Michael Morcou, the leader in the King of the Mountains. So as they continue on, let me remind you again, make sure to sign up for our Discover Card Fantasy Cycling Challenge at nbcsports.com/challenge for the chance to win the practice phase prize, a Cervelo R5 or S5 bike. And if you win today's stage, you'll receive a Giro Air Attack helmet. So the riders now are heading to the next phase of this race, which will be the last 5 climbs of the day. They're not very far away now from the Côte de Mont-Violet. That will come with 21 miles left to race today. They're currently at around about 26 miles still to go. To keep up with the Tour de France, you'll need the most advanced digital experience of its kind. Go to nbcsports.com/TDF Live and get Tour de France Live. For a limited time, get Tour de France Live for $29.99. Well, the peloton is massing now as they're trying to get the gap down on these riders before we get to the last 5 climbs towards the end. There's going to be a lot to talk about in our primetime show tonight, I'm sure. We've seen our first abandonment on the Tour de France today. So let's go and find out of Bob, Scott and Liam McHugh what's frying for tonight, boys.
Phil, thanks so much. Yeah, we had a clean first few days in Belgium. We enter France, the first abandonment. Team Sky's Konstantin Sivtsov. What does it mean for a team that's going after so much yellow-green jerseys that they're down 1 guy?
This is actually really disappointing for Team Sky. You know, Sivtsov was brought onto this squad, the Tour de France squad, specifically to help Bradley Wiggins in the high mountains. You know, he's a very, very good climber, very good stage racer. Back in 2008, he finished, he won, actually, the Tour of Georgia, a very mountainous stage race in the United States. So he will be sorely missed, unfortunately.
So we saw, as I mentioned, a clean race for the first few days. This wasn't the case last year on the Tour. We saw a lot of guys hit the pavement. We're starting to see that a little bit more today. Why do you think that is?
Once the Tour de France got into France, the roads are a lot smaller. The roads are much more narrow. And also, there's a lot more traffic furniture. They've done that over the years in France to guide the cars through these small communities, but it's had a really disastrous effect on the Tour de France peloton, and it's tough for the riders to negotiate all of those twists and turns, and eventually you have crashes. Last year, we saw a lot of the contenders for overall victory go down in those. It's really disappointing to see Konstantin Tsivtsov, one of the top domestiques on the Sky team, the first abandoned. We got to France, and the carnage started.
That's the situation with Team Sky. Of course, coming up on Tour de France Primetime, we will be talking about the strategy for Team Radio Shack Nissan, and we will have, as always, Ask Bob Key presented by Head Sweat. So let's send it back to Phil Liggett, Paul Sherwin.
Thank you very much indeed, guys. Yes, I agree with your comments on Tsivtsov. Big loss for Team Sky. He was 16th in his previous tour back in 2008 as well. Well, we've got a little bit of move on the front now, Paul, with the 5 riders deciding enough is enough. Grifko wants a little bit more speed. Morku is straight after him.
Well, Mirko is a very rapid rider. You can see his pedaling style is completely different, and that has really put a bit of a problem into the legs of number 23, Giovanni Bernardo. He's saying that's too much for me.
Yes, well, that acceleration came from the champion of the Ukraine, both road race and time trial. Mirku was straight after him, but you're right, it looks as though Bernardo, no reaction there. That's goodbye to the break.
Yeah, well, he was put under a lot of pressure because of that acceleration, but did you see how quick Michael Mirko was? He's a real good track rider. His pedigree is on the track. He rides the 6 days. He can almost sense when a move is going to come, and if you can get straight onto the wheel, it's a lot easier than trying to bridge the gap.
20 kilometers, 22 miles to go to the finish. We'll shortly be on the Côte de Mont-Violette, which is the next climb. It's not very far in front of the leaders now. That's why Mirko in the polka dot wants to at least get another point. In fact, there's 2 places on the top on this one because it's a little bit harder. It's a 3rd category climb.
Yeah, so important for Mirko to try and get that once more if he can. He wants to build up a big lead and hold the King of the Mountains classification lead right the way down to the climax on Sunday, which is a big mountain top finish.
General regroupment at the back of the race, and not all of those riders have got back, but the vast majority have rejoined the field. Of course, we left behind on his way to hospital Konstantin Tsivtsov, the rider who in his first Tour de France finished 16th in 2008 when he's on the HTC squad. And they've lost a strong man here on his next visit to the Tour on only day 4 of the race.
That is tough. It's a tough thing for a team to lose somebody so very early on in the race, because a team has been built, a team has been put together over months to come to the Tour de France with a specific job in hand. Everybody's practiced their job in the races, like the Tour of Romandie, like the Criterium du Dauphiné. Then all of a sudden, you've broken a piece of the machinery.
Yes, and that's going to cause a big rethink of the tactics possibly for Team Sky as the race unrolls. But right now they're down to 4 leaders now, and they are certainly not giving up the fight to win the day. And because of the way the terrain is laid out here, there is every chance they could still stay away to the finish. They've got 2 minutes 26, 35.8 kilometers to go. Well, it's possible, although not very probable.
Well, the only advantage they've got is having a big, strong man like Andrei Grifko in the race from Ukraine, a rides for Team Astana, champion of his country in the individual time trial and in the road race. But it seems to me as if once again, Phil, the peloton is playing this little cat and mouse game with the breakaway. They're waiting for the right moment to pounce, and we've seen how fast they go. Once they sort of start to get the bit between their teeth, they go crazy on these small, narrow roads. And as we start to approach the climbs, they will accelerate even more to try and place their leads in the first 15, 20 places.
And this view of the peloton now with different teams setting the pace here as the speed goes up now in excess of 25.5 miles an hour. The peloton are beginning to ride quite well. Movistar, Liquigas are helping out Radio Shack on the drive. Well, there's the empty road ahead. We're not too far away from the climb as the peloton clearly going quickly now. They'll try to chase these leaders down. We'll be back for the climb itself. Welcome back, and just in time as we head up towards the summit of the Côte de Mont-Violette. It's only 1 kilometre, just on half a mile. Not very high. It's a gradient of almost 10%, so it's quite steep. The peloton are on the lower slopes of the climb now as well, being driven by a number of different teams, including Katusha. as they continue now to make the ride up here with 1 kilometre to go towards the summit. So this is Katusha. I think they've got an interest today in bringing this race together as well. They feel perhaps that Oscar Ferrer might deliver at the top of the climb. Just about a third of a kilometre, not very far to the summit. First two riders only get points over the top of the climb. Morku rather, in the middle is the leader of the King of the Mountains, and the well clear of everybody else. This is the sort of trouble at the back. Then going off the back here now, interestingly, the rider we're losing here is Marcel Kittel. He was sick yesterday and couldn't get up in the sprint. It looks like he's been caught out again. Hasn't recovered yet. He's just hoping days get better in the Tour de France. There's the summit. There's the acceleration by Morku as he comes up towards the summit. It looks as though Sebastian Minard will get the second place, but more importantly, the couple of points goes the way of Michael Morkov. So that's why he's in the breakaway, and he's stacking the mountain points in the bank at the moment. So he'll increase his lead a little bit more in the competition. He's been in the leading group every day so far, all 3 days of racing. The 27-year-old, something was said to him. Well, he heard what it was. This is the peloton. They are also on the climb as well. Now, 4 short, brutal climbs punctuate the stage's final 35 kilometres, and the Strava segment of the day is the first of those. The Opie Show, an unwelcoming kilometre war with an average gradient of over 10%. Perhaps steep enough to burn off the sprinters, these are hills made for the men of the classics. See if a strong man can tear a small group away from the peloton for the dash into Boulogne-sur-Mer. A speedy sprint or brutal war like the Opie Show. See how your friends and all your mates stack up against other locals in your area by creating a segment on Strava.com. Well, the continuing problem for Yahini Hutrovic, the champion of Belarus, is now sliding off the back on the climb. He is a sprinter, but it indicates just how steep this climb is. Well, when you lose a sprinter like Hutrovic, Paul, it's only short, but this gradient is almost 10%, so it's quite a hard climb.
I think it's the repetitive nature that's going to really hurt these riders once we start to get down to the finish, because every 5 kilometres we've got to climb once we start to get down to the last 15 kilometres to go.
Well, now you see the flatlands in the backdrop as we climb up to the high spots of the course today, and still just off the front there are the 2 riders who've been here all day. The men in black. On the left it is Jaroslav Popovic, on the right it is Jens Voigt for Radio Shack. The peloton now just keeping a fast tempo here, and if the riders at the back can't match it, then they get left behind.
Just have a quick look here as we get an official time gap from the main field to the leading group of riders. I would say we're just outside of the 2-minute mark. They're going to stop the clock there, Phil, around about 2 minutes and 8 seconds.
Which is pretty much what we're saying on screen, 2 minutes 7. That's about the right gap at the moment. 20 miles now left to race, 32 kilometres to the finish. The last 4 climbs now all come in the last 10 miles of the day, or the last 16 kilometres. So they really do come thick and fast. And the last climb is the finishing line of the race. And the roads now stay narrow. We've now swung away. We're now running up. On the left shoulder of the riders is this beautiful sight, and they won't see it at the moment. It is, of course, the English Channel looking straight across to Great Britain. They're now running towards the finish, coming up from the south into Boulogne-sur-Mer. This is the Bay de la Canche. So there we are, as we have a look across the open countryside here of the Bay de la Canche. And the riders will be catching the wind that could well blow in off that. This is the National Nature Reserve here, by the way. So it's a protected area of 504 hectares. And is not far away from Torquay, which is in the southwest of England. Torquay Beach, which is where there is also a casino. Let's have a look after that climb, how it stands. Morkov now has 7 points. Nobody else has scored. 1 for Minard on this occasion, because second place on the third category climb gets 1 point. That's the only other point. So there the riders are now speeding on to the next one. Bit of a gap before we get to the next one. They've got approximately 10 miles to the next climb, and then they come thick and fast all the way to the finish. There's the man who has dropped from the break. The 2012 Tour de France on the NBC Sports Network is presented by Proform TDF, the official training bike of the Tour de France. Visit proform.com to see more. By Specialized. I am specialized. By Competitive Cyclist. Get 20% off. Well, welcome back. We brought you back quickly because this has just happened. Yet another crash. Can you believe this? I've noted already down there Johan van Sommer of the Garmin shop, who was involved in the previous one. Again, it's only because of the narrow roads. There was no obvious reason for this crash. Here we are, a little look back. As just wrestling his bike on the left of our picture here is Christoph Kern, who was in the breakaway in the green yesterday. Keep your eyes going right down to the bottom of the picture, as all of a sudden there's a touch of wheels again, I think, that has caused the pile-up, and they're exaggerated with the number of fallers because of the width of the road. There is nowhere for riders to go when the fall starts. There we are from the front view. Simon Gerrans from the Orica Green Edge has been left standing on the road at the moment. Now let's hope that is not serious. He might just need a new bike, because Gerrans, strong man on the Orica Green Edge team. We'll update you as we find out along the road. Right now, though, getting on with the job in hand. The riders from Movistar at the front and Liquigas. This is the carnage we are leaving back at the road. Tyler Farrar is caught again, along with Johan van Sommer. The Katusha rider being helped up here as well. They were very, very much in evidence at the front of the race today. And there's another rider down there from Movistar. It looks like Rojas is down, who was second in the green jersey competition last year and has said he wants stage wins this year. He's not interested in the green jersey. Well, he's left on the road. He is the Spanish sprinter and the former champion of Spain too. Meanwhile, these four riders are constantly attacking each other now. On the right is Morku. He's been attacking them at the front. He's come to the back for maybe a little bit of a breather, but he doesn't seem happy with the work rate of the other three riders, and he wants the points on the hills just up the road. Well, one rider not looking too good in that crash was Rojas, Paul. He's been left on the road for the moment. Let's hope he gets back up. Simon Gerrans was standing on the roadside as well from the Orica Green Edge team. Let's hope it's just a bike change for him. But once again, these narrow roads, once they have a touch of wheels, there's nowhere for the riders to go to escape the problem.
Well, they're all nervous. You can see a very cut-up Tyler Farrar there as well. He was involved in that crash just a little bit earlier on, and these guys are now all scrambling to get themselves back into the main field. 123, Johnny Hugel, and he knows all about crashes. A crash made him very famous last year when he was catapulted off the road by a passing media car.
Second crash for Tyler Farrar on the right there. This time he's grimacing. He's got cuts on his elbow. In front of him is Robbie Hunter, who's been in 3 pile-ups, I think, today. The champion of South Africa, trying to pace him back. The first little group of riders rejoining the peloton. Check the flags out. The wind is in a bad position for the rejoining, because it's coming right across our television screen from the right. It makes it very, very hard in the crosswinds.
Everyone's nervous. Everyone is taking risks. I don't know exactly how that crash happened. One rider got catapulted straight out of the field, probably because of the nervousness of the stage, the fact that we're going onto small roads, small little climbs. Again, chaos at the back. This is Philippe Gilbert. He's looking for the team car.
And Gilbert still behind the third group, I think, on the road at the moment. He's just talking to his team car. He's got a teammate waiting for him. But you see, he can only go around the red referee's car into that group in front. He's waiting. Oh, he's got a problem with his shoe.
Well, you know,
Rojas has just abandoned, Paul, so we left him on the road. Rojas has gone from the race with that crash.
Well, Philippe Gilbert is not the right time to have the wrong pair of shoes on here this afternoon, and not the best way to go for a shooting as well at 40 kilometres an hour or 25 miles an hour. The chaos here, it's going to be very difficult for Philippe Gilbert, a teammate of Cadel Evans, to get himself back into the main peloton.
Well, he has gone back in. Well, Rojas is a rider who finished second to Mark Cavendish in the points competition last year. He didn't look very well when he was left on the roadside. The doctors were with him. And so now it looks as though he has abandoned the race. It's been confirmed that Joaquim Rojas out of the race. Has 2 riders gone today. We're looking at the peloton now. They are absolutely flying here. The remnants of the crash behind trying to rejoin. And there's some big names all trying to get back on here now. as we can see now that Orica, Green Edge are trying to get riders up. The gap to the leaders is just on 2 minutes, so they're surviving, and they're constantly under pressure by attacks from Michael Morku now. The peloton doesn't look too big from that shot.
Well, I have to say the leaders, because of the fact that we've got all this chaos going on behind, it might give them a slight advantage. But when you look at the face on these men in the main field, I still think they're going to turn the hammer down a little bit more once we start to get to the next couple of climbs. And the peloton, with its impetus and its speed, can wipe away 30 seconds on each of the climbs once we go over to the next few climbs of the day. So it's going to be touch and go for those 4 riders, but they will start to believe in themselves. Some of the big names caught out behind, obviously Simon Gerrans, the Australian national champion, but he's got Brett Lancaster up alongside him. They are battling now to try and get themselves into the main field.
And the American sprinter Tyler Farrar is still in that chase group. Philippe Gilbert is still in that chase group. And where are we? Look here now. This is Mark Cavendish back here as well. So they've got to get back across the gap.
That's Cavendish in the white jersey with the rainbow bands around the middle, a champion of the world, winner of yesterday's stage. It just goes to show how you can turn everything completely upside down.
Christian Knies of Team Sky is here. Thomas Vauclair is at the front of this group as well. He's just getting himself back into some sort of shape. Vincent Jérôme, another good rider, number 26, is sat here at the back of the group. These are anxious moments now. Once we get into this corridor of the last 16 kilometres or 10 miles, we're constantly on the hills, and if anything happens on those narrow roads over the last 10 miles, Paul, they won't rejoin.
Well, they certainly won't. It's going to be very difficult to rejoin right now because of the speed as we go through the small town of Nesle and department number 62, and the gap is opening up quite dramatically because the chase is on at the front to try and pull back those leaders. Let's not forget, Andre Grivko is the best placed rider in that leading group of riders. He's the one in the blue jersey there. He's only 38 seconds off the overall lead of Fabian Cancellara.
He's still the leader of the Tour de France and has been throughout the day, because he lost 38 seconds to Cancellara in the prologue, but he's got all of that back and more right now. There's no time bonuses in the Tour de France, so they race for real-time gains today. These 4 riders have every reason to keep the pressure on here because of the difficult nature of the last 20 minutes of the race today. Still looking at each other. Grifko goes through. Well, almost panic in the peloton now because they're not holding any punches back now. They are driving, and it's the Movistar team who are doing a lot of the driving as they continue on the front of the race here. The irony is, of course, they've lost one of their big men today. Rojas has now abandoned the race with that injury. So that is now Robbie Hunter, the champion of South Africa, trying to get Tyler Farrar back into the action here, and is willing to drive the race on. Robbie Hunter himself has had 1 puncture and 2 crashes. In this chase group, also the world champion Mark Cavendish. He won't waste energy trying to get back because this isn't the stage he was planning on winning. So he'll just watch and wait and live to race another day. We'll take a break. Rejoin us. Well, we've got towards the end of another stage of the Tour de France. It crashes again. Yanni Brachiovic in the blue there. He was one of the riders involved with his team leader, Alexander Vinokurov, and this caused a ricochet effect. A number of riders going down here. On this occasion, everybody got up off the ground and sorted themselves out, and happily, they rejoined the peloton. Brachiovic here having a little bit of a patch put on his left elbow. Then further up the road, another blockage right in the centre of the peloton. This one brought down Tyler Farrar. His teammate Johan van Summeren waited for him. Robbie Hunter, the champion of South Africa, also delayed there as well. But this was more serious for this man here. Konstantin Sivtsov, sadly of Team Sky, became the first rider to abandon the Tour de France, and he's gone to hospital. Then soon after that crash, a puncture to Peter Sagan. It may have damaged his bike in the spill, but he got it sorted out. He got back in the end. Johan van Summeren looking after Tyler Farrar. And then we had another crash just as they caught the rider in the breakaway, Bernardo. Another ricochet almost at the front of the peloton. This was serious as well. Riders all over the place. The road's so narrow they had nowhere to fall. Well, at least the grass would make a softer landing than normal for a lot of the riders. But once more, another victim of the crash who goes no further is Rojas, the former champion of Spain, because he has abandoned the race as well. And being helped there was Sammy Sanchez here. We're going back up now. He was going on what's going on. He's dropped back to the team neutral car here because there's nobody behind the race at the moment to look after the main part of the field. Well, these are busy moments now. Sammy Sanchez not happy with the neutral service for some reason there, Paul. He wants information. We're looking here at the breakaway. Yes, the gap continues to come down. It is now a minute as we race towards the last 20 kilometres of the day.
It is nervous. He's trying to explain the problem that he's got with his back wheel and trying to get himself organised. I can't see what the problem is myself, but it may well be that he can't get... It may well be a gear problem, Phil, that because he's right at the top end of his sprockets.
Yeah,
there.
it is.
There you go.
These are electronic gears, so let's hopefully put a battery in for the start of the day. It's supposed to, I think, last about 2,000 hours, but that goes very quickly. But anyway, that's Sammy Sanchez, the Olympic champion. Hopes to defend his title in London in a few weeks' time. 20 kilometres to go for the peloton. They are absolutely flying now. It's total chaos behind the pack just now.
I just noticed at the front end of that line in about 4th or 5th position in a red and black jersey, Cadel Evans with a teammate riding alongside him, riding calmly and collectively as he can, thinking about what to do. Sanchez now just goes under 20 kilometres to go. He's got that gear problem sorted out. Now he's got to get himself back into the main field. This is not the time of the race, Phil, to have any problems at all. Cadel Evans continues to ride at the front. George Hincapie in front of him there. And really, these guys are doing a phenomenal job. It's as if they're trying to lead Cadel Evans out for the sprint. But Jens Voigt says, "Oh, boys, I'm a lot stronger than you are."
Well, Sky will have noticed the strength and the confidence of Evans here because he did the same on the ride into Serein and almost pulled it off. Now, Sanchez in the chase group, he is the Olympic champion defending. He's also the king of the mountains of last year's Tour de France, and he was quoted in the press as saying he was going to have a go for the win today, probably why he's so annoyed. He's got a teammate up with the leaders here as they start to split again. And Morku has quickly got to get it round Ruben Perez there, who seems to have cracked on the climb.
Well, there's Minard as the man who's going to make the move from Mirko, just about to get across.
Well, this time on the climb, they have dropped Ruben Perez of Euskadel Euskadi. Morkov is having a problem to hang on to Sebastian Minard and indeed Andrei Grivko.
Well, he's concentrating. He's looking at the back wheel of Minard. He's trying to judge his effort. He's trying to roll himself back to that wheel there, and then he will see whether or not he's got anything else left in the gas tank this afternoon. They're stretching out. It's always Jose Ivan Gutierrez coming to the front in that lime green helmet for Team Movistar. 1.3 kilometres to the top of the climber. Grivko now puts the hammer down. They've gone past Minard, but you know, I have to take my hat off to Michael Mirko. He will not give up.
He wants to win. He needs 1 point at the top of this climb. There's nothing for second place as he goes up now. The race behind is under extreme pressure. This is an incredible stage for the Tour de France away from the high mountains. Morko knows he wants Grivko and he wants the point.
Watch out for this. This man is a track rider. He can push himself into that red zone a little bit more. They're shouting for Philippe Gilbert. Well, it won't be his day this afternoon as Mirko digs very, very deep there to try and get himself onto the slipstream. If he can just make the slipstream, he'll give himself a couple of minutes to recover, and he should be able to come out of the wind, out of the slipstream of Grivko, and get himself that one more point.
As the clouds roll in off the channel here, Mirko is finding there's a lot of thunderclouds over the Tour de France today. He has joined Grivko. Grivko saying, "Well, come and help me." He says, "After I've taken the 1 point, I might give you a hand." We are now into this corridor of 4 successive climbs which lead us to the finishing line, and the peloton is still in disarray behind.
Well, I think the clock went a little bit haywire then, Phil. I looked down at the computer. It said 1.5 minutes. I thought that is absolutely impossible, but it seems to have corrected itself now because it is around about 3/4 of a minute, the advantage of those two riders over the front end of the main field, which is absolutely charging up this climb.
The top is just around the corner. This was the worry of all the riders, that the wind would blow today. It was very calm at the start in Orchies, but here on the coast it is blowing and it's hurting the race, and so too are these narrow roads with their twists and dips and dives. So now they're heading for the top of this climb, and he's looking for the point. Two of them in tandem now, the remnants of a five-man breakaway. Morku is the champion of the moment in the King of the Mountains. He's going through now. Grivko is the champion of Ukraine in two disciplines, time trial and road race.
And a powerful man when he gets onto a move like this. I tell you what, I bet he was very surprised when he saw the return of Michael Mirku. He must have thought to himself, I've got this in the bag here this afternoon. I've opened up the gap, but I don't think there's going to be any mercy coming from the man in second position there in the polka dot jersey. He wants to get maximum points again, and he comes over the top.
Well, he's worked very hard for that. He really did. Grivko was trying to go for gold and win the day. This is what Murkov wanted, and he's got it now. One more point in the bag. And it's not very far to the next one, Paul. It is only about 4 kilometres.
Alessandro Patacchi here, the man who was a great sprinter. He's got that lime green bike, and he too has got a problem with his chain.
Well, 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 and that is not good. Even though he is a sprinter and wouldn't win today, he doesn't want to be left up behind at this crucial stage of the race. This is the peloton now. See how narrow the roads are. If you're strong and you can get to the front, you can literally block the progress of the rest of the race.
Well, these are the survivors of that breakaway. It was 5 men. They lost Bernardo. Then they lost these two riders, Minar in the white jersey in front and Ruben Perez in the orange jersey in the second position. Shortly, they will see the main field for the first time since the 5th kilometre of today's stage. They're looking over their shoulders, waiting to see what's going to happen. It's BMC Racing, but Phil, that is not a very big main field. There's another climb coming up in 4 kilometres, 2.5 miles time.
Well, the roads are narrow now. It also makes it difficult for our cameras to show you at the back of the race as well as the front. This race, though, is set to splinter again as they still... This is like Dan Martin here who's trying to get back. Where Dan must have been... That is why they've been racing at the back, to try and bring Dan Martin back into the action with Christian van der Velde on his wheel. These boys still trying to get in contention.
Talk about chaos on a day in the Tour de France when you expect it to be a simple day with a little bit of a flurry of activity at the end with a couple of climbs thrown in. All of a sudden, everything goes wrong and there are bike riders smashed all over the Boulonnais.
Well, they need to get contacting because they are losing real time, and that is a serious situation for Christian van der Velde at the front of the race here. That's why he's taken control as he comes up the climb. He's not that far behind. There's still every chance they can rejoin. They've only got 5 kilometres or 3 miles, though, before they're on the next climb.
And then another 4 kilometres after that, there's another climb. The climbs keep getting at them, smashing them in the face. The yellow jersey of Fabian Cancellara, Phil, is sitting there in about 12th to 14th place. He's not done a thing wrong all day. He's just sitting there calmly and collectively and waiting. But so too, Cadel Evans, I have to say, for this afternoon's effort, 10 out of 10.
Absolutely, and the bright yellow jersey in the centre there of Fabian Cancellara, he's in a strong position to keep that jersey again today.
No, well, a little bit of calm coming back to the main field now, but that will soon change once they start to feel the approach of the next climb of the day. It really is a lumpy part of France here. Nothing very high, nothing very long, but you just keep coming back. Another climb, one after the other.
The remnants of a 5-man breakaway that went clear today after just 3 miles of racing. We are now 8 miles from the finish, and there are 4 more climbs to the top before we hit the line itself. 3 more climbs to go. Sorry, Paul. Yeah.
14 kilometres, 47 seconds. That corresponds to around about 700 yards, the difference between those two leaders and the men behind. Their advantage in a situation like this, Phil, is because the roads are so twisty and so narrow that the main field can't actually see them to judge how much of an effort they need to put in to catch them.
The 2 riders down there, and Grivko is leading the tandem, and he's still the leader of the Tour on the road. He's still 10 seconds to the good on the clock in the overall classification. That should change, I would think, in the next 2 kilometres or so. These roads are wonderful roads if you're a professional cyclist going out on a day's training, but they are viciously hard on race day.
Well, obviously, Alejandro Valverde is still a factor in the race. That's why Team Movistar in that dark blue jersey at the front are continuously coming up to the front end of this group and hammering away at that advantage. It's locked in now at 50 seconds. That's probably because of the power of Andrei Grivko, the champion of Ukraine in the time trial and in the road race. I'm starting to wonder whether or not our man there in the yellow jersey, Fabian Cancellara, is going to put in a performance this afternoon and try and get the stage victory he was looking for on day one.
I would bet on it. That man is going to use every chance he's got to retain that yellow jersey. We're now on the Côte de Caen, and it's 109 meters high, this climb. It's not very high, but it is short and pretty steep.
Well, just looking back over the first 3 climbs, Mirko went over every one of those in first position. He's still in contact, and he's still inside of the final kilometre of this one. He will be looking at a very good day out in that quest to lead the King of the Mountains classification for the first week of this Tour de France.
Well, this also is a 4th category climb, so it's not too long. The banner's up the road there, and again, only one rider scores points. Morku is the man that wants the 1 point and keeps on hedging his bets to increase his lead. But at last, I think he's getting tired after 3 days in the lead for the best part of 5 hours a day.
Well, there's Bradley Wiggins in second position. He's got a teammate in front of him, looking after him, making sure that he's kept to the front end of the peloton, away from any thought of danger. On the left-hand side, it looks like Jens Voigt was looking after Frank Schleck, so he's made the selection here this afternoon.
I must say, looking at the face of Wiggins there, he's certainly not a man under pressure at the moment. He just shrugged his shoulders there. Everything's going according to plan. He's got a great position in the peloton. These two boys fighting out the mountains. Looking close in now on Michael Morku, who needs this 1 point at the top of this climb. 2 points rather at the top of this one. Second will get 1 as he continues to hold off the field. But for how long now, Paul? 41 seconds the gap.
Look how narrow that road is starting to get. It's coming in from the sides. It looks like an African road that's eroded at the side and gets so narrow and becomes a track once you come over to the top of the climb. There is the top of the Côte de Caen, 185 kilometers covered, and it should theoretically be another point in the bag for Michael Mirko.
Well, the only jersey that's actually definitely confirmed for tomorrow is on the shoulders of Michael Mirko, because he gets the 2 points there. But for everybody else, you know, the last sprint of the day could change the lead in the race on points for green, and it could change the lead in yellow if there are time gaps.
It's going to be a dramatic finish. It's a great finish here in Boulogne. We're looking at the group at Thomas Vogler here, and again it's Christian van der Velde from Garmin Sharp who are doing all of that pacemaking. Richie Porte is in this group. He's one of the riders from Team Sky in the black jersey going through there. Philippe Gilbert going through as well. He was caught out with some problems at the back end of the race.
Here come the peloton now driving on at the front. The tempo over these climbs, they're just not taking into account the gradient at all. They are hurting so many people at the back of the race now.
Well, Radio Shack Nissan have got a very large number of riders. I've just seen Maxime Montfort in there. They're looking after their man this afternoon. Of course, Frank Schleck, maybe for the long term in this race this year. The Tour de France, he finished 3rd last year. But at the moment, they're looking after Fabian Cancellara to keep him at the top end of the leaderboard. If he survives today, Phil, and stays in the yellow jersey, I can see Fabian Cancellara staying in that yellow jersey right the way down to the weekend.
Well, that's always been his plan, and it's working out at the moment, but this is a very, very difficult sting in the tail today. We still have a couple of climbs to come up to the finish.
Well, this is Adam Hansen, number 115, a big Australian rider. Now we're now just behind the back end of the group at Van der Velde. They're calling it now the group Van der Velde, group Vogler, group Philippe Gilbert, whichever way you would like it to be. The gap now is inside of 30 seconds. There's only 500 meters separating the 2 leaders and the peloton.
It's amazing, but they've managed to survive. There's only 2 climbs left. The last is the finish. Now, is Morku going to manage to hang on to the last climb out on the race course as they continue on a left turn for the peloton, which is still under extreme pressure? There are still a lot of riders chasing. We are now hitting 10 kilometers to the finish for the 2 leaders. 6 miles to go.
Well, 2 climbs to go as well. The next climb, though, Phil, is a brute. It's a 3rd category climb, and it's the Côte de Mont-Lambert. It is very steep at the bottom, and once you go over the top, you plunge into the outskirts of Boulogne-sur-Mer, and guess what? You've got to climb up to the finish line as well.
And a tricky one it is too. Right in the centre of the town, and it is narrow, and they make a right-hand sweeper as they climb up towards the line. There's the peloton. They are now under 10 to go, and Grifko is no longer the virtual leader of the Tour. The gap is down to 28 seconds, 29 seconds. We just have 2 climbs left, a third and a fourth category.
Well, I wonder if Team Sky are now starting to think Edvald Bosenhagen. He's in the group, but Andre Greipel has disappeared from the group. This is Bernie Eisel sitting at the front, setting the pace. Behind him, it's Michael Rogers. All of a sudden, Team Sky Pro Cycling, they have now decided to dictate the pace. Maybe it could be a finish for Edvald Bosenhagen.
Well, when Evans and Team Sky's Bradley Wiggins finished on the climb at Saran the other day, for some reason, Bradley Wiggins was extremely annoyed with his team, and there was a little bit of a black air around the Team Sky bus, and I think it was because they didn't really look after him like the team of Evans had looked after Cadel Evans, who rode extremely well. I wonder if he will try just to snatch seconds. Time gaps could be real on this climb up to the line, and that's why I think Wiggins might just try something. You never know. Snatch seconds when you can. At the moment, the object of being at the front is not necessarily to win, but to be safe, because the leaders can't afford to slip back right now.
Trying to scramble up on the left-hand side, the lime green jersey there of Liquigas. They're trying to do everything they can. There's still a large number of Orica Green Edge riders in this group, and I don't think that Matthew Goss was involved in any of the accidents early on. He's probably thinking now that the chances are tilting much more towards his chance of climbing up the green jersey points classification, because Mark Cavendish has been left well behind.
Well, you can see the ups and downs of this beautiful area around Boulogne here. They're never flat at all now. These riders get swooping drops and then they climb again, and that they're being driven on all of the time now. Team Sky are getting a grip at the front, and that's a sign of a team with a big leader on it.
Well, this is the next group on the road. This is the group of Philippe Gilbert, Christian van der Velde, trying to get themselves back into the race. They're still looking for 30 seconds.
Yes, a lot of work being done at the moment here as we look down. Desperate moments in the Tour de France, that's for sure right now. The gap, they're going to sweep up those 2 riders, I think, before we get onto the climb. And so the peloton, there's the gaps. And I have to say too that the rain is starting to come onto our camera lens. That is exactly what we don't want, is rain before the finish here. Cheers for the 2 leaders. They move on towards Mont Lambert here. And Grifko clearly the stronger man of these 2 now. And the Côte de Mont Lambert is a little bit more difficult than the others. It's 1.3 kilometers. Ouch, the legs have gone there. The legs went on Morkov, and Grifko has gone on. The only good news for Michael Morku is there's 1 point for second on this climb. But Grifko is now not making a bid for the King of the Mountains. He's making a bid to win the race down in Boulogne. And he is on terrific form. He's just won the double title of time trial and road race champion of his country. On the day in the prologue, he was 4th in the end. He led from out 4th rather, and he was out front. Now that's how close they are. So they've wiped out Morkov. He's had a good day, but he hasn't quite had a clean sweep of the hills today. He'll keep his lead in the King of the Mountains. And he won't worry about getting on the back of this peloton as they race for the finish. He'll just ride home now, which isn't easy when you've been out in front for such a long way today. Now, Grifko, the only man who's left out in front of those 5 riders. And it really, if he looks over his shoulder, I doubt he'll see the top of this hill before they come all around him. It is such a hard running now. This is the last climb before the finish itself, as we run down the last 6 kilometers of the day once we're over the top of the climb. What a defiant show by him, though. Well, he's so determined, Paul. This man has paid the price. We're not surprised now. He's not going to try to hang on to the back of the peloton. His legs have gone for the day. He's the leader in the King of the Mountains tonight. And as he moves towards this is Basso at the front now.
Well, obviously trying to put it all together, because on the left-hand side you can see the green jersey of Peter Sagan. Everybody has said this is a Peter Sagan type finish this afternoon. But also in this group you can see Michael Rogers trying to make sure that they keep the presence of Bradley Wiggins at the front end of the main field. This is a battle between men who want to win the stage and men who want to win the Tour de France, not losing any time at all. This is Grifko just still battling away. He's hoping to get over the top of this climb and get himself a couple of points, but I'm sure he's going to get caught before the finish.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt about that right now. He wanted to just get over the top, so he might be able to take a few deep breaths and go with the group over the top. The next climb is the finish line now. It's Ivan Basso who comes up, the Italian on the same team of Peter Sagan. He shut it down. Sagan is in this breakaway. He's put his man now in a position to win. That's terrific riding by Ivan Basso.
Well, the crowd need to push themselves back a little bit because there's not much room for these men to move up the outside. I noticed Frank Schleck of Radio Shack Nissan trying to get himself into a good position here as we get up to the top of this climb. It's amazing to think that a man like Ivan Basso will come to the front. He's a former winner of the Giro d'Italia. He's finished on the podium in the Tour de France. Now he is working as a domestique for a 22-year-old by the name of Peter Sagan.
But Basso has gone over the top. He's got the last King of the Mountains points out on the course today. Just 2 for that. And those 2 points will put him in second place overall in the competition. But that doesn't affect Mercu, who's off the back, but will be the King of the Mountains for another day. Puffing and blowing a little bit, the maillot jaune, and right on his back wheel is Cadel Evans. So Cancellara leading Evans here, and Alessandro Valverde, who is said he can win on this climb, is on the wheel of Evans.
Vincenzo Nibali also moving up now as we see this man. He's had a great day out, but Michael Merco, it's the end of the day for him, and it's also the end of the day for Jens Voigt. But I don't think we could hold that against him because he worked so hard throughout the whole of this stage.
Well, the work rate now of Team Radio Shack for Fabian Cancellara. There's no more climbs until we get to the finishing climb. Ivan Basso is up here as well. He's done a marvellous job to keep his team man Peter Sagan in the action, and the yellow jersey of Cancellara is poised. So too Cadel Evans, so too Alessandro Valverde. They are getting onto the springboard and they are ready to jump. Just look at this now. Let's launch an attack straight off the front. I think there's a bend in the road. That's why he slowed down to correct the corner. He's going to kick out of this corner. It is a rider here from the Omega Gas Pharma Quick-Step team who's made his move. As he's made a move, and it's Sylvain Chavanel, the former champion of France now. The finishing line is exactly the same finishing line 2 years ago. Sylvain Chavanel won the French championship on. He knows the finish better than anyone. Well, this is the move, Paul. Let's remind ourselves, Chavanel won his French title on the same finishing line that we're racing to now. He knows the roads, he knows the running. 5 kilometres to go. I wonder if he's gone just a bit too early.
Well, he knew what he had to do. He had to try and take a long one to get away, but there's a rider coming across from a Radio Shack Nissan. I'm not sure exactly who it is through the haze here, but if any man can pull this off this afternoon, it's going to be Sylvain Chavanel. He will be motivated by the fact that 12 months ago he won the French national title on this very same climb up to the finish line, and he will try and hope to survive. The main field seems to be slowing off a fraction. All Chavanel needs is 10 to 15 seconds lead, and he's got it in the bag.
Cadel Evans has moved all the men up there on the team BMC, including TJ Van Garderen. He wears a white jersey tagged onto the back. Chavanel looks over his shoulder. There is a little bit of a gap. He's using the downhill to take a few deep breaths and recover from the surge from the peloton. He's only 4 kilometres out, you know. It's only 2.5 miles to the finish now. He's gone under the 4-kilometre banner. He's got a gap, but it's Team BMC and Cadel Evans' squad who lead the charge.
Don't forget, Phil, he's in 3rd place in the overall standings as well. He's looking for 7 seconds. This man is no stranger to leaping out of a main field, getting himself a few seconds and getting himself the overall lead. He's French and he's racing on a road that he knows extremely well.
And he finished 3rd in the prologue time trial to get that time advantage. Best prologue time trial in his history he's ever ridden. Now it's really more up to Radio Shack. They've got to bring Chavanel back if they want to keep Cancellara in yellow tonight.
It is very, very rare in the sport of professional cycling for a Frenchman to expatriate himself to a Belgian team. This man did it because he wanted to learn the tools of the trade. He wanted to be able to ride the one-day classics like Paris-Roubaix, the Tour of Flanders and Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and he felt the only way to do that was to move across to Quick-Step. He has become an incredible racer. He's got a real nose for the move. He knows these roads, Phil, and look at the way he's taking these corners. He is going around those corners. He's clipping every edge there to try and get every little bit of an advantage before he starts the final climb. 12 seconds is his lead right now.
He's led this race in the past in the polka dot, the green jersey, the yellow jersey. He has finished third in the prologue this year. He is a man on form. He is a terrific bike rider. He's also won 3 stages of the Tour de France, so there's nothing new for Sylvain Chavanel in the Tour de France. But this is one race he would love to win, and that's going to be a tricky corner for the rest of the field coming down.
It certainly will, Phil, and just look at the way he went round here. He thought, oopsie-daisy, a little bit too fast into that one, but he corrected it. He knew what he had to do. The main field, all of a sudden, one or two of them have gone straight on there, and that looks like a rider from Movistar. It may well be Valverde himself.
It could be. It was right at the front, the way he's kicking off, that it could have been Valverde who's made a terrible mistake. He's way at the back of the peloton now. If it was him, Marcus Burkhardt is at the front of the race now, and it's up to BMC, it seems.
Well, this man knows what this final climb of the day is going to look like. It's pretty much all the way up to the finish line from here. 2 kilometers, 1.2 miles. Now his own teammates are trying to slow it down for him. Marcus Burkhardt in front of George Hincapie. It's 8 seconds the gap for this man, Sylvain Chavanel. He really is a fighter. He really has thrown the cat amongst the pigeons. He knows, look at the way he's sitting up. He's getting a little bit more time to recover. He knows what this final climb is like, Phil. It's almost a kilometre uphill to the finish line.
Kevin de Weert is the man who's moved forward there to try and calm down the chase here. He's been forced back now because Chris Horner has been forced to chase. They're trying to save the yellow jersey of Fabian Cancellara because there is a time gap at the top. He could well swing across to this rider from France.
Slipped up to 11 seconds the advantage. That still puts the yellow jersey onto the shoulders of Sylvain Chavanel. He's one of the rare riders in a bike race like this who can survive on the final slope up to the top. Peter Sagan is sitting right on the wheel of Fabian Cancellara. Cancellara won't give him a gift ride to the finish on this occasion. He's there on the shoulders of the yellow jersey. They're all looking round now. Chris Horner is having to do a lot of work inside of 1 kilometre to go now, Phil, and he's going to start to climb up 700 metres to the finishing line.
It is not an easy climb here. A lot of the journalists walking to the finish line today could hardly speak when they got to the top. They were so out of breath. He'll make the turn. He'll sweep up towards the line. That is a very definite gap. If it counts 8 seconds, he's the next leader of the Tour de France. If he can hold it to the line, he looks over his shoulder. But they are coming at a real rush now.
Now's the time. He's got to find something special. The big move coming behind, and again it's BMC Racing trying to set something up. Those legs are starting to scream for Sylvain Chavanel.
Well, as they start to make way now, they got to break on the right here. They're trying to keep Cancellara back in this race as well. There's a rush on the left of the picture. Cancellara and Sagan are going in the middle as they break on the right as well. Now, can Peter Sagan control this one? Because it's going to be... Oh, there's a crash in the middle. A rider from Vacon Soleil went down. That's broken up the peloton. They are out of this now. Cancellara is trying to... Sagan is over the top. Now he'll see the finishing line. Is there any stopping this man as he kicks again? Boysenhagen is on the right. Sagan is coming clear to win his second stage. He will consolidate his lead in the green jersey, and I think Cancellara will keep yellow as Sagan gets it. Cancellara close enough, probably a 1 second time gap. He's dancing all the way to the line. Boysenhagen second.
Well, Phil, 2 stage wins in 3 days for a 22-year-old is really something very remarkable indeed. And Bradley Wiggins is off the back I wonder if he was involved in that crash. If he was involved in the crash, he will get the same time as the rest of the field.
Yes, he will, under the rules. In the last 3 kilometres, if you are together when there's a fall, they will give you the same time as the riders you are with when you fell. So technically, all of these riders should be given the same time today.
Well, that was a pretty dramatic run into the finish. One rider even took an exit to the left-hand side there because he couldn't get around that corner. They were going up this climb so very, very quickly.
Well, the fact that Valverde didn't take part in that spin, I'm sure now it was him, Paul, that went off on that roundabout, caught him out. But Peter Sagan, this is the new Eddie Merckx in the world of cycling for sure, the 22-year-old. He can't do a thing wrong. Win number 15 of the season.
Yeah, but win number 2 out of 3 in the Tour de France. And yes, he really is a little bit of fun, this young man. Comes from a background of BMX, then went across to mountain bike racing, and now I think he's going to make a solid career in the Tour de France.
He rang up his friends in Slovakia and said, what should I do in the way of a little jig on the line if I win stages? They told him, I haven't quite worked them all out yet, but he seems to be changing them every time he wins. There he is. I think he'll keep yellow when we look at the clock today. So at the end, they really had to fight. What a terrific end it was to the Tour de France today.
Well, there's a confirmation. Peter Sagan. In fact, Edward Bosenhagen came up to get himself second place there.
Well, we're looking down here now. That was a terrific piece of riding by Peter Sagan, and all the work, remember, done by his veteran team captain there was Ivan Basso, who brought the race up to the lone leader, Grifko, and then he did the job. He did it really well. Bosenhagen there sprinting to second place behind Sagan, and Cancellara just a little bit off it. This is Christian van der Velde coming in now. He had a rough ride today, Christian, involved in the crashes, and he would get us probably a slightly different time up to the line here. This is just over 2 minutes, in fact, since the clock started counting. Let's have a look at the stage result first. Sagan wins. They docked in 1 second the advantage for him over Bosenhagen, Peter Velits, Fabian Cancellara and Michael Albertini. The peloton should all be placed at 1 second if the judges apply the rule of the accident inside that last kilometre today. But there's no doubt who won. Yes, they've done that. Cadel Evans is second. Nicholas Roach's birthday today is 28. Sam Sanchez 8th. Bauke Mollema 9th. And Vincenzo Nibali 10th. Looking further down, Ryder Hagedal well in with a 12th place finish. He's looking very strong again. And Jelle van den Dert is the top 15. Bradley Wiggins' name hasn't come up yet. He was delayed in that crash. Let's have a look here. It looks like it's a Katusha ride, and it could well have been a bit of a squash there as those two riders fell on. Looks like it could have been Oscar Freire who was the rider through the middle of them. At first it seemed there's only going to be a few fall down. That's Wiggins on the left of the picture there, who was involved in the crash and lying against the barrier, so he was involved. The man in black on the right here, ouch. And but fortunately the international rule, which was started some years ago when Eddie Merckx involved in a crash near the finish, and the referees decided it was unfair in a tussle for a sprint finish to dock riders real time against the quest for the GC, and they brought in that rule. Which means you get the same time the riders you were with when you fell. So coming up, of course, our usual Proform.com post-race report. There's lots to report as well. Podium standings and everything we can find out for you when we come back after the break. But the winner, Peter Sagan today, and what a ride that young man has done. 2 stage wins, and we're only just completing stage 3 of the Tour de France. There he is. We'll take a break. Rejoin us after the break. Welcome back. It's now time for our Proform.com post-race report. This is a live picture, and in this group is Tom Voigtler. I think Mark Cavendish will also be in there. There's Mark Cavendish in the white, gazing around, looking at the clock to try and see who has won. Johnny Hoogland, our crash victim of last year, he is in there as well. And they've lost over 7 minutes on the run into the finish today, which is really bad news for Tommy Voigtler indeed. But the Road ID ride of the day today, it has to be the ride by Peter Sagan today, who has done so well as they punctured. He was involved in those little stoppages out on the highway, had a hard job to get back, but when he got back, boy, he got round that last corner on the bottom bend, saw the finish, and Bosenhagen tried, but nobody could get on terms here with Peter Sagan. He was simply too strong as he rides to his second stage win in the Tour de France in 3 days. So he's done our Road ID ride of the day. And don't forget, if you want a chance to win daily prizes and a 2013 Trek Madone, head on over to roadid.com/ride and make your prediction for tomorrow's Ride of the Day stage winner. So we're now waiting to see Peter Sagan on stage here at the moment. Also in is Morkov. He came in with Jens Voigt. Lost a couple of minutes, but he won't be worried about that. He'll be the leader still after a brilliant assault on that King of the Mountains title. Over 3 days now, he's done pretty well. Quick spin around the crashes. It all started when we saw Brakovic go down. Alexander Vinokurov was involved in this one as well. The worst injured was, in fact, the rider in the turquoise jersey. Somebody fell over the Lamprey rider, who seemed to have caused the crash anyway. But it was Brakovic who had to get to the doctor's car and get patched up. He got back into the peloton after that, just in time to catch this one. because a lot of the same riders were involved in this one. Tyler Farrow was down this time, along with Johan van Summeren, Robbie Hunter of South Africa, but the most seriously injured was Konstantin Sistov, number 109 there. He has gone to hospital. And then the puncture to Sagan. These two riders trapped at the back. Johan van Summeren trying to coax Tyler Farrow back up to the peloton. Then there was another crash just before they even got up. Same routine again. And believe it or not, when they did get up, they were involved in this stoppage as well. So it wasn't the day. There's 67, Johan van Summeren. And Tyler Farrow wasn't too far away from him. Very narrow roads. And some riders took a really nasty tumble there. So they went over the handlebars. This is not pretty pictures and memories of Johnny Hoogland as the riders crashed. That was when they caught up with Giovanni Bernardo in the breakaway. Mark Cavendish goes mountaineering on the right of our picture there, with the white jersey on as world champion, and that split was caused by that. We also lost Rojas, by the way, in the crash here. There he is, being investigated by the chief doctor and stopped from riding on. And then Cavendish now 7 minutes behind with a lot of other riders, while this time in the dead centre of our picture we could see the white jersey of Bradley Wiggins delayed by that crash. And as the field came away for the sprint finish, they left Bradley Wiggins in the centre of our picture, looking at his bike and trying to sort out what the problem was. Luckily, the rule is applied where he gets the same time as everybody else in that group of riders, because the fall arrived near the finish. Here comes Tony Martin on the right with his broken wrist, keeping out of all of those shunts. He's ridden all day at the back of the field. So too on the far left in the orange, Luis Leon Sanchez. They both got broken left wrists, and they've come in here well out of trouble of those crashes. So let's have a look then. Stage 3 results for you. Sagan wins his second stage in 3 days. Boysenhagen gets second place, riding extremely well. Peter Velits also in there. Good finish by Peter Velits. Cancellara in 4th place and staying in touch very much. So all given same time. Vincenzo Nibali, and they're all at 1 second. The Tour defending champion is 6th, Evans. Olympic champion Sanchez is 8th. The top 10 completed by the Italian favourite for this race, Vincenzo Nibali. He's at 1 second as well. So as we look out across the channel, let me remind you, the London Olympics are coming to NBC and the NBC Sports Network. Coverage begins July 25th on the NBC Sports Network, leading up to the opening ceremonies, July 27th on NBC. So the Olympics are still distant memories for the riders in the Tour de France, as they try to keep something special for London. At the same time, they're trying to win the Tour de France, and it's leading, I have to say, to an extremely interesting Tour de France, because the mountains are still a few days away. This man, though, has wasted no time in getting his name into his very first Tour de France record book. 2 stage wins. He's consolidated his lead for the moment in the overall. Cheers here all round from his teammates. I think this is Daniel Oss, who's delighted for Liquigas Cannondale. They've got their winner on the podium yet again. It's a dream year for Peter Sagan, that is for sure. We're waiting now to get Sagan out on the podium. And TJ Van Garderen will keep his lead in the white jersey competition as well. Conserved his 1 second advantage over Edward Boysenhagen. Now, don't forget, our Tour Prime Time show tonight will be at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And we will be able to bring you a lot more detail on the accident. And, of course, we'll bring you any interviews we can't fit in during our live coverage, which isn't far from going to an end now. But dear me, they do bounce around, these riders, when they get so excited towards the finish of a stage of the Tour. They're all caused by somebody making a mistake in the peloton. They ride so close together by character, and yet a touch of wheels, and this happens. The delay to Bradley Wiggins, but at the end of the day, apart from him being probably rather annoyed at the standard of riding, he should be okay. He hasn't lost any time on the defending champion, Cadel Evans. He'll still be 10 seconds behind him in the overall classification. Well, I'm not going to say anything like I'm amazed to see that picture, but I am actually, because I think we're waiting now. I am now. No, we're waiting. We're about to send you down to an interview. I think we're about to go to the podium. We're just waiting to see what's happening down there as they get the music ready. So let's hear. The music's beginning to play down in the centre of Boulogne-sur-Mer, and we're going to see that man out there, Peter Sagan, who so far this year, everything he's done has been leading towards his build-up for the Tour de France, and now he's about to come on stage for his 15th victory of the year and his 38th win of his career, and he's only 22 years of age. Sagan now has 2 stage wins in the Tour de France. He has 4 stage wins in the recent Tour de Suisse, and he has had 5 stage wins in the Amgen Tour of California. And there he is, having pulled on his champion's jersey of Slovakia. He'll be replacing that very shortly for the green jersey as well. More flowers for this man. He takes it almost in his stride. He looks out at the crowd with the face of a veteran rider of the Tour de France, doesn't he?
Well, certainly, Phil. You know, the amazing thing is, out of the last 15 races that he rode before the Tour de France, he won 10 of those. You know, 5 stages at the Tour of California, 4 in the Tour of Switzerland, the National Championships. He's won 2 out of 3 stages here.
That's right. Bernardino chatting with the dignitaries there as well. Well, there's one of the old World War II bunkers there, because this was a hot spot in the Germans against Great Britain in the wartime years. Let's have a look at the Michelob Ultra overall standings. Fabian Cancellara keeps all the time gaps the same. Wiggins second at 7. Sylvain Chavanel tried hard, but still is 7 seconds back. TJ Van Garderen holds his white jersey in 4th place. Defending Tour champ Evans is in 6th, looking for 17 seconds. Ryder Hejjedal is in 8th place, and Walt Mollier completes the top 10. Well, that was a tough day for Cancellara to keep that yellow jersey, Paul. He really had to work very hard, but when it comes down, the chips are on the table. This man is up for the game, isn't he?
Well, he is, and bear in mind that big 7-second gap that he got, Phil, in the prologue time trial. He's conserved all of that through the first 3 days, and I don't see anybody really taking this race away from him until we get down to the mountains at the weekend.
Looked as though it might have happened today. A great effort by Sylvain Chavanel. He only had to win by 8 seconds. Bernardino having special words there for Fabian Cancellara, and you know, himself was a great bike rider and a great fighter, so he knows what Cancellara has done today.
I think he would have been fairly proud by the performance of Sylvain Chavanel, who really raced right the way up to the line there to try and get himself not only the victory of the stage, but the overall lead.
So as the flag is still flying at the top, we'll now can go down to the finish area. We can catch it with Steve Perino, who's talking to Tyler Farrow, who had a real up and down day. Let's go to Steve.
A lot of carnage out there, obviously. Where did it start going wrong for you?
You know, I went down in one of the crashes with maybe 40K to go or something, but I mean, it wasn't a big deal. I wasn't hurt, and got back on, and then Christian crashed and Tom, so you know, we stopped and waited and then chased as hard as we could. I don't know if Christian made it back or not. I hope he did, but...
We just watched Tommy D come by. He looked like he was in a fair amount of pain. You get any reports from the guys in the car?
Yeah, well, we chased till the climbs, and then he and Christian went, and then we caught him after, I guess he crashed again. And I don't really know what happened, so we'll see what the doctor says.
Right on. Every bit as nervous and dicey as you had anticipated?
Yeah, it's the first week of the tour, you know. This is how it goes, unfortunately.
Good to see you with a smile on your face. Thanks.
So Tyler Farrow off to the showers after the finish today, and still taking it in his stride. That's the pro situation on the Tour de France. As he said, it's the early days of the tour. Back to the podium again, and this is now the green jersey presentation. Peter Sagan comes on. He's consolidated his lead in this today. He got nearly maximum points off the sprinters down halfway along the course today. He's got maximum points at the finishing line, so he's building himself a nice little early lead in this race. And remember, Eddie Merckx 2 days ago said to Peter Sagan when he came off the podium as a winner in Serang, he said, "You can win the green jersey in Paris." Looks like he thinks he can too. Flags of Slovakia waving proudly here in the French town of Boulogne-sur-Mer. Bernardino saying, "Come on, meet the dignitaries." We've got the Minister of Transport here from the region, as well as the President of the area, of the Conseil Général of the region of Pas-de-Calais. There's a look round the port. which is looking rather murky now. The English Channel in summer, it always looks like that. Let's have a look at the green jersey standings. 86 points now for Sagan. Mark Cavendish, 73. He's still very much in the hunt because he won 10 points today, Mark Cavendish, on course. Matty Goss 55. Cancellara goes down to 4th place now, also 55. Boysenhagen, well in there, scored well today. He's got 42. Time to look at the King of the Mountains now. And there he is. He's loving every minute of his first Tour de France, Mikael Morku. He's really worked his heart out to wear this jersey. He won't win the King of the Mountains, but boy, he's raced for it like you would not believe. Out of 15 hours in the saddle, he's been in the lead for 13 and a half of them, just to snatch the point that matters to keep the lead. Well done. His first Tour de France, he'll be on the track at the London Olympics, trying to win something more than a silver medal, which he won in Beijing in the team pursuit for Team Denmark.
Well, he won't have to worry too much tomorrow, Phil, because tomorrow the small climbs come very early on. They're only 4th category climbs, so he should keep this for a couple of days.
Fabian Cancellara around the back here, signing on the autograph for the VIPs again as he gets on with his job. We'll see if there's anything more. We haven't seen TJ Van Garderen come on stage yet because he's kept his 1 second advantage over Edvald Boysenhagen, who tries to get that 1 second gap in the sprint every day. It's not working out. TJ's in the white again, and after his fine 4th place ride in the prologue, he keeps his lead in the best rookie competition.
Cadel Evans was very attentive. He was in front of that crash on the run up towards the finishing line, and once again he finished inside of the top 10 on the stage. He has not either put a wheel mark wrong so far since this race left Liège.
No, he hasn't, and TJ's looking after Cadel. That's his primary concern in his second Tour de France, but as he's only a young man, he's also leading in this competition too.
I think the important thing for a rider like TJ Van Garderen, Phil, is the important thing is he's learning the trade alongside an experienced professional bike rider, just like Cadel Evans is.
All right, well, let's have a look at what our plan is tomorrow with our Geico stage map as we head to Rouen tomorrow, which is the home of the great 5-time winner of the Tour, Jacques Anquetil. We go down to Abbeville for the start and then to Rouen.
Well, the order of the day will be the winds that will come in off the ocean now, starting from Abbeville. They're very quickly onto the coast, all the way along the coast as they head down towards the very beautiful town of Fécamp before turning inland and then finishing right in downtown Rouen, the home of Joan of Arc.
So there's the route, a massive distance too tomorrow, 214 kilometres for the riders, 4 4th category climbs and our usual sprint at Fécamp. All right, well, we will take one more break and we'll wrap everything up for you on today's stage of the Tour de France. And while Peter Sagan again entertains us for a second stage win in the Tour de France for him. We'll see you back here in Boulogne in just a moment. Well, tonight on our primetime programme at 8 p.m. Eastern, we'll have an awful lot to tell you about. It's been a crazy day on the Tour de France. We'll also have an interview with Fabian Cancellara, and we'll analyse all of those crashes and what it's done to the Tour de France. And don't forget, tomorrow, our live coverage between Abbeville and Rouen, 133 miles, tomorrow 8 a.m. Eastern Time on NBC Sports Network. All our clothing here is provided by Peter Miller. And don't forget, for a full schedule and race highlights, log on to NBCSports.com. It was a crazy day in the Tour de France today. 2 riders are out with injuries, but the Tour, as always, rolls on. For all of the team here in Boulogne, goodbye for now.
Sports Network thanks you for watching this presentation.